Hey everyone, welcome to the fourth annual SIFTD Fantasy Video Game Draft right here on SIFTD Games at SIFTD.net. Hard to believe we've been doing this for 4 years already.
Well, 3 years.
Yeah, well we've had three seasons. This will be the fourth season. For those of you who are new, who maybe have followed us on Twitch over the last year since we've done this, or for those of you on Patreon who don't even know what the hell we're talking about at all right now, this is an idea I came up with when we launched SIFTD to do, and I'm a big fantasy football guy, as you guys probably know, and so I wanted to try to bring the whole aesthetic of fantasy football into video games, and so I came up with the idea of a video game fantasy league. And essentially what we do is Matt and I, just like a normal fantasy football draft, we take turns picking games, and then at the end of the year, we look at the aggregate score for each game that we've chosen, and we add all those aggregate scores up to give a total, and the person who has the highest total at the end of the season wins the league.
Shane takes this very seriously, by the way.
In fact, I do not take it that seriously.
Any fantasy thing, though,
fantasy football, I do take extremely seriously. I will admit to that.
But I know he takes it seriously enough that when he tells me over text, I flipped the coin and I won. I believe him. Yep. He wouldn't do that. He wouldn't mess with the sanctity of the coin toss.
Well, I've also done that the last 2 years with you, and you've won the coin toss both times.
It's the first time you've won.
It's the first time I get the first pick.
And it's always because I make a list of like what I want, and then kind of alternates because I anticipate that you're going to pick stuff I want. So I have a list that goes up. So when we text about it, it's like he picks a thing, I pick a thing, and then Shane takes 10 minutes to pick his next thing and I can picture him pacing, in front of the computer like this, and he's like finally he's like da da da, and I'm like game. Yeah, and I just go back to whatever I was doing. Like I'm like 10. I got 10 minutes. So
yeah, and actually, we should probably tell them how this works. We do not actually pick these live on the show. We do a text message thread the night before where we make our picks, and that's so we have the graphics ready to go today because we don't have someone who can do live graphics on the TriCaster. So we actually do know each other's teams right now, but we're going to go through all our picks, make the picks, and then explain our picks. And we'll do some commentary at the end when we look back on the draft and things like that. There are some rule changes this year for the league. The biggest rule change probably is that we are now allowing for 2 alternates per team. So in the past, if you chose a game in the draft and it ended up getting delayed out of the year, you would just get a 0 for that game. And a lot of times what it ends up doing is completely ruining the league before you even get close to the end of the year.
Yeah, last year, your season was over by June.
Pretty much, it was, yeah. And so we're trying to do this to make sure that there's interest built into the league for the entire year, not just for us, but for everybody else as well.
It also frees you up to kind of make a little riskier choices. Because it's amazing to me, last year you look at the picks, and Super Mario Odyssey was a 4th round pick for me, and the fact that you gave me that game is ridiculous. But you weren't sure.
I was convinced it wasn't going to make it out,
and I was convinced it was coming out.
Right? Yeah.
But
it's just like real fantasy football. There's a lot of luck involved in this, and we want to take a little bit of that luck out of it. So we have 2 alternates, and how it works is we pick them in order after we pick our 10 games, and then if a game falls out, that very first pick would slide in. If another one falls out, that second pick would slide in. You can't substitute games in. You can't say, oh, crap, this game I picked got a crappy score. I want to swap this one in for that. You can't do that. Only if your game is delayed and you were going to get a 0 for that game would an alternate come.
But I would enjoy the angle of that if, you got panicky and because the substitutes would have to be no backsies.
Yeah.
So it'd be fun to you substitute, and it turns out the thing you substituted for actually bombs, and the thing you originally thought was going to get bad reviews got good reviews.
And in that way, it would be more like fantasy football because in fantasy football you have a bench. And you can pull players off your bench and start them. But obviously it's apples and oranges.
We'll talk about it next year for that.
Yeah.
I think start slow is the right way to do this.
So we have 2 alternates this year. The other thing we've changed is we are no longer allowing any DLC. So standalone DLC is out. We're not allowing any ports of old games to a new system. And I think that's it.
Remasters.
Yeah, remasters are out. Because you're kind of cheating when you do that because you already know how good the game is before you pick it. And part of the fun of this is we don't know how these games are going to turn out.
Unless the remaster is garbage. But.
Right, yeah. Which is possible.
So the one thing I did have on my list, I'm like, it might be a good, was the PS4 version of Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah, I saw that
Which, to be fair,
it is a new
may
episode.
not make it this year.
Right, because it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, but you know that the first 4 have been tremendously well received, so chances are the 5th one is going to be pretty good.
Yeah.
It's an edge case, but I like that it still has the risk that it may not be out this year. But like, it wasn't key to my strategy.
Yep. So with all the housekeeping out of the way, we're just about ready to go. But before we do, we have a little housekeeping to take care of, and that is looking back.
You said we took care of all the housekeeping.
Well, we have some extra housekeeping. We're going to clean up our backyard with this one. So we have the results from last year's league, which I do not want to look at. I had to look at it today, and it was very discouraging. Sam, bring them up. So these nice transition there, by the way. These are the results of last year's league. I looked at my team, and I was like, what the hell was I thinking?
I don't know. I think I said that when you picked Mass Effect first.
Well, I will say one thing. Ghost Recon Wildlands at a 72, that game has ended up being one of the best-selling games of the entire year.
Yeah, I feel like Ghost Recon in the end, should have probably reviewed higher than that, given how popular it ended up being. Also, you only had one no-show.
1-0. Yeah, that was Sea of Thieves. And so you can see that 0 just basically crushed any chances that I had. Matt, first of all, Matt, you set the record this year for the most points ever scored in the SIFTD Fantasy League with 870 total points for an average of 87.
Pretty
That's
good.
Insane, dude. That is really good.
2017 was a good year.
So the averages basically are, I'm only dividing by 9 for my average instead of 10. So my average pick was a 79, still well below Matt. So Matt, the champion, the 2017 champion of SIFTD Fantasy League, this applause is for you.
Woo.
Congratulations, buddy. Excellent job. The best year yet from SIFTD Fantasy League. So there we go. And with that, it is time to get to our first pick. All right. So
we're on the right sides this time.
Yep, we are. So Matt, like I said earlier, I won the toss. Finally, I won a coin toss. I think Marcus may have won the toss the first year too.
I think he did.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had the first pick. So I have the first pick in the SFL 2018 draft, and my pick is Red Dead Redemption 2. Yeah. Pretty much a no-brainer. Like you said earlier, I took 10 minutes on some of my picks. This one,
No, this was my first pick as well. Like, it's the obvious one.
Yeah.
Also, I am getting over something, so there will be coughing today. I apologize for that, but there's not much I can do about it.
Yeah, so Red Dead Redemption 2 kind of explains itself. Obviously, it's a game from Rockstar. Rockstar never releases anything until it's done and excellent. The reception of the first Red Dead was amazing. It got extremely high scores. Its aggregate was over a 9. You got to assume the sequel is going to be a bit better. So I have high hopes for this game. It is my most anticipated game of 2018 as well, if you watched some of our preview coverage earlier in the month. So I am really excited for the game. It seems like everybody is. It looks awesome in the trailers that we've seen of it so far. I think that's a pretty safe pick.
I think it's the head and shoulders best pick of the year.
And that is one thing that will become a theme throughout this draft is playing it safe. Because the year before this one, I got burned by 3 games that got 0s.
Yep.
This past year was only 1. But you'll see that a lot of these picks, you'll think of games and say, oh, why didn't anybody pick that? Well, the chances are we didn't pick it is because we aren't 100% convinced it's coming out.
There were people at the last year's draft who were like, you guys are stupid for not picking Red Dead Redemption 2.
Right.
And I think I actually said, I'll pick it next year.
Yeah. Nope.
And it was just like, but yeah, it's like, you do this long enough, you know what's going to make it and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I think
not always, but you have a pretty good sense of it.
Yeah.
I'm just to the point where I'm so paranoid about games not coming out that I really erred on the side of caution this year.
Well, I was like 98% sure Mario was coming out last year.
Yeah.
You just weren't convinced. But
I wasn't 100%.
I just knew that like if Mario didn't make it last year, their holiday lineup was in shambles. So.
Yeah. My paranoia for this has increased every successive year, by the way. I get more and more conservative, but I felt like Red Dead 2, safe pick. It's definitely coming out. Right now it's scheduled for June.
Yeah, I feel like it might slip to fall, but I'm like, it'll come out this year.
That 6-month buffer was good enough for me. The upside, obviously, of it being Red Dead was totally enough to seal the deal for me as the #1 overall pick. So, Matt, it's up to you. Your first pick of the draft.
My first pick is Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, Insomniac Spider-Man.
Yep. This was I
was a little surprised by this pick.
I was going back and forth between this and your next pick.
Okay.
But in the end, I feel like this one is going to blow people out the back of the theater a little more than the next pick, and it has the advantage of being a new and interesting take on a character that has not really been done justice in a long time, as opposed to being a reinvention of a series that was already successful. So I just felt a little, like just a fraction more confident about this one.
My concerns are Insomniac's recent track record.
True. I mean, but I just feel like Insomniac's not going to mess this one up.
I have an auspicious outlook on the game, for sure. Mostly because we've spoken to Insomniac about this game, and a lot of the questions and concerns we had, they answered all of them. And then, obviously, this demo is just freaking awesome. But my other kind of caveat that kind of kept me from having this second on my list to draft is that it is a little traditional. It does feel a little bit like a game from the early aughts.
But the other thing is, like, you know, that is a little concerning, maybe in the sense of like how the gaming community will react to it after like a month. But this is about how the reviewers are going to react to it,
That's
and
what
the reviewers are going to go gaga over this thing, I think.
Yeah, I mean, most game journalists are into nerd culture, comics, and things like that, and certainly they have an affinity.
It certainly
for
also
Spider-Man.
should not be taken that every game I pick in this is meant for me as my endorsement of
Right.
them.
Well, we should have said that right at the top, actually, is that we're not saying that these are the best games that are coming out this year.
I'm saying they're going to get reviewed well.
Right. These are the games that we think are going to get high review scores, not necessarily the games that we think are going to be the best games this year.
It's like the Oscar. You know, I win Oscar pools all the time because I pick all the. And I was like, oh my God, how could you pick that for this? I'm like, I don't think that's the best actor of the year. I think that's who's going to win.
You think
best
that's
actor.
what they think is the best
exactly.
actor.
You're not trying to give your own opinion. You're trying to give your opinion of their opinion.
Yeah. And I think our years of experience help in this a little bit, being in the media for the last decade.
And you'll see as pickings get slimmer further down the list, you'll start to see me go like, okay, they're going to go nuts for this thing, even though it's not going to be a thing for me. Like that kind of thing is very much part of the strategy.
Okay.
So I think Spider-Man, I just trust Spider-Man's ability to make game journalists spooge a little bit more than this next one.
Okay, and now it's time for my second pick of the draft. My second pick is God of War. God of War 3, which some people kind of look back on now and say, oh, wasn't that great? It started strong and kind of faded, which I would agree with a little bit. I
always said that.
I still think it was an excellent game.
It was good, but I lost all my enthusiasm for it when I got stuck in Hades' maze.
Yeah.
I just didn't care anymore.
Ultimately, it still ended up with a 92 Metacritic average.
Oh yeah, like that doesn't matter. Like what I think about these things doesn't matter. Like, I'm super excited for God of War.
So am I. This is actually a pick. This probably would have been like my second pick anyway, just based upon my excitement level for games this year.
I just think when I was weighing Spider-Man and God of War, I just feel like there might be a little bit of backlash or resentment in the sense that like this isn't what God of War should be.
Yeah.
And like I don't agree with that, but that doesn't mean it ain't gonna happen. And in the end, I was just like, look, if I don't pick this, you'll pick it.
Yep.
If I don't pick Spider-Man, you'll probably pick that instead. Which one would I rather have? I feel like Spider-Man might have 1 or 2 points on God of War in the end, in the Metacritic.
It's entirely possible. I did have some comfort in knowing the same studio is working on this game that's worked on it for a long time. They totally get the IP. They understand what God of War is about. And I'm also encouraged by the fact that it's not just going to be another God of War.
Right.
I feel like if God of War 4 was going to be the sequel to God of War 3, a linear, controlled experience, I probably would have drafted this a lot later. But because it is kind of following the game du jour, which is open world, crafting, light RPG elements, Kratos isn't really the main character. They're starting to show some cracks in his facade a little bit in the promotion that they've showed for the game. The story looks interesting to me, far more interesting than if they had just kept continuing the prose that they had used in the prior games. I think everything's lining up pretty well for this game to end up doing well with critics. My one concern is, however, that we have not seen squat of this game, Matt. I mean, we saw the demo that we saw a little earlier. We got this literally like minute-long trailer from PSX, and that's all we've got. On the flip side of that, as far as footage is concerned, not much. But in the last week, Game Informer's cover story of God of War has been rolling out, and basically they're going piece by piece online. You can read the whole thing in the magazine, and I highly recommend that you do. But if you go to GameInformer.com, they're slowly rolling out the features from the magazine one by one on their website. And all the interviews I've watched, all the exclusive access that they got, everything has been extremely encouraging.
I just feel like we're kind of in this period of like, I don't want things to be the same. I want it different. Well, you should make it different. You should do something different. And then the different thing comes out, and people go, well, I didn't mean like that,
yeah.
you know, and like I was just that's in my back of my head, and I just ended up prioritizing Spider-Man over it.
I don't think you can go wrong really with either one. I mean, really, honestly, the first few picks of this were pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But that falls off a cliff pretty quickly, though, too. I would say it gets interesting a little later on in the draft, and you'll see as it comes up. But that's my pick, my second pick. I'm pretty happy with that 1-2 right there.
Yeah.
Red Dead 2 and God of War. I'll take that.
I think so.
Matt, what is your second pick?
My second pick is another safe one, Far Cry 5.
Yep.
I think this is going to review very well. Ties into some zeitgeist elements pretty nicely. Caused some controversy, but like, I think in general they're going to deliver just like they always do with this series. And
did you go look at the aggregate for Far Cry 4 by any chance? I did not. I can't remember how it did.
I want to say it was like low 80s.
Yeah.
Far Cry 4 didn't really set me on fire the way 3 did.
I liked it a lot, though.
I actually didn't like it very much when it came out, and I think I played like 4 or 5 hours of it and wandered away from it. And after, because I loved Primal.
I did
thought
too.
Was really great.
What did Primal net out at? I can't remember that.
I don't remember.
I know I gave it a high score in our gaming.
Primal, and I like Primal, and a few months after that I wanted to keep playing, but I was done with Primal, so I decided to start up 4 again, and I finally went through and finished it. But like, 4 just didn't speak to me in a weird way. I just did, like, everyone was a jerk. And it's like the decision to be like, do you want to like oppress the people with religion or oppress them with drug trade did not really appeal to me as like a big moral. It just felt weird. And like I'm more interested in kind of what Far Cry 5 is doing, and if there's going to be some kind of like commentary on that, or actually have a social exploration of things. It's clearly, you know, making the most of its Montana setting with the Rocky Mountain Oyster side quest minigame thing. I think there's potential here, and it could end up being kind of more of the same as Ubisoft, more climbing towers and riding.
How do you think the controversy around the game, if there really is one, to be honest, will affect its Metacritic, if at all?
I think in the end it'll help it because most game reviewers are fairly left-leaning, and I think it's a criticism that most of them agree with.
Yeah.
So I think it can only help.
Okay. All right, it's time for my third pick. And this one, I thought when I made this pick it was going to anger Matt.
No.
But it didn't. I really thought it might. And my pick is Ni no Kuni 2. And the reason I thought it might anger Matt is because other than Shadow of the Colossus, which is a rework of an older game which wouldn't be eligible to be drafted, it was your most anticipated game of 2018.
But as we say, it doesn't matter if I like it.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But I thought, sometimes you kind of want to be able to get invested in and represent the games that you're kind of saying people should.
I get it. This game's kind of an X factor. It's one of the reasons I'm anticipating because I don't know what it's going to be in some ways, because Studio Ghibli did not consult on this.
Yeah.
They got the same character designer, which is why everybody looks like
it looks like
it.
Studio Ghibli did actually work.
But we'll see what it is. I don't know. We'll see what it is. Maybe it's too similar to the first one. Maybe it doesn't take it too far enough. Maybe it takes it too far. We'll see. JRPGs are rolling the dice with reviews a lot of the time. You just don't know. And I think it'll do well. I don't think this is a bad pick at all.
The first Ni no Kuni,
it just wasn't something my heart was set on.
The first Ni no Kuni has like a 91 Metacritic, and this game, I've played it at least 2 trade shows, and I have been I've been more impressed with this game at trade shows than I was with Persona 5. And Persona 5 was one of my games last year. It ended up doing very well. It seems like the press has at least one JRPG darling every year. And looking through this year, I can't see another game that is more likely to kind of be that darling this year. And again, I've played this at a couple trade shows. I've absolutely loved my time I've spent with it. It has varied gameplay. It's not the same thing over and over. There's like crazy
which was one of the problems of the first one.
It absolutely was. And there's like these crazy Pikmin-like stages in the game. It's obviously gorgeous. It's one of the prettiest games of 2018. So I feel like at least visually it's going to get a nice score. So
it was on my if you hadn't picked it, I think it would have been either my next or next to next pick. It would have been someone was going to get this game.
I surprised myself a little bit that I picked it so high.
Yeah, I didn't anticipate you going for this one this soon.
But after this is over, I'll kind of show you guys, or maybe just walk you through the notes that I used for this draft, and we'll kind of share some games that were like right on the bubble, or kind of what our thinking was on the grand scale as far as like our strategies and our scheming. But yeah, Ni no Kuni 2 for me is my number 3 pick. Matt, what's your third pick?
My third pick is representing one of my favorite things, and that's Yakuza 6.
Yeah.
Which I think is going to review extremely well, just like they usually do. And I think this one, Yakuza 0 was probably the best game in the series.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think 6 being the first one built for current-gen consoles, and apparently just being packed with personality and weird mini-games and crazy stuff, I think it's going to do real well. And I love Yakuza, so I wanted to have it there to kind of show some support.
I will say this: the mainstream.
So you picked the really Japanese game, and I picked a really Japanese game in response. So I think
both with a third pick.
Yeah.
And I will say the press in general over the last 18 months to 2 years has focused a lot more on Yakuza.
Yeah, they've really warmed up to the series, and of course it did review very well in Japan. Which doesn't always translate to Western.
Well, Famitsu, it's like...
Yeah, well, Famitsu, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I still tell the story of like how everyone worshipped Famitsu as like the god of video game opinions for years and years. And then in the Usenet days in the mid-90s, Vic Ireland, who used to run Working Designs and now runs Gaijin Works, I believe. They were a localization company, so he used to translate the little, because Famitsu had the blurbs like EGM used to do.
Right.
The review crew thing.
Yeah.
And
they had multiple people review each game.
Yeah, and when they would come out, the new issue would come out, he'd translate all the blurbs and the scores for people on the English-speaking Usenet, and like the translations were like, this game had good action. I liked the way it did things. Yeah. And you're like, that's your commentary? Like, it was like the most like shallow, like brainless like commentary on the game. Like EGM only had a little bit of room, but like they tended to get some pretty incisive statements in there.
Yeah.
And all the stuff in Famitsu was just like, it was pleasant to be in. It's just like, what? Like, and like it just, everyone's illusions were just shattered. Like it's like, wait, like we thought they were saying profound, like insightful things, and it turned out everyone was just like being like, it was a good time. I had fun. You're like, okay, fine.
Well, back before NeoGAF turned to crap, and it was actually a really great place to go and a great place to get games information, Famitsu was the gold standard. Mm-hmm. And back then, I would argue that Famitsu's grading standards were a lot more stringent.
Yeah, well, Nintendogs kind of ended that.
Yeah, like for the first, the first 10 years I followed Famitsu's reviews, if a game got a perfect 40, that was a big deal.
It was a big check.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, honestly, yeah.
I mean, they're basically an advertisement.
But it used to be there were only just maybe like 3 or 4 games that had ever gotten a perfect score. And then at a certain point, and you're right, the inflection point kind of was Nintendogs.
Nintendogs getting a perfect score was sort of like
that was the eyebrow raiser.
Yeah, I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
And
since then, it's just been whatever.
Right. And I still feel like that score, a lot of the 40s that Famitsu has given over the years, I can look at and be like, yeah, I get it. Like, I get it. Not that one.
No.
Not that. I don't think that one's aged
I'll never
very
understand
well.
that one. Yeah, and I think there's been other games since then where they seemed a little shady. But regardless.
But I mean, Vic's translations already had me kind of skeptical of of Famitsu, and then after the Nintendogs thing, I was like, all right, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like, I just stopped paying attention.
It's become a bit irrelevant at this point. But on the flip side, in the West, the press has been all over Yakuza the last couple years. A lot of journalists now understand it, get it, know the story. They'll be more invested in 6. So I think that's a good pick. You guys are going to see. You may be saying right now, oh my God, I can't believe Shane picked Ni no Kuni 2, or I can't believe Matt picked Yakuza 6. You're going to see why here very shortly.
Yeah.
Because one thing you're going to realize is this isn't 2017.
No, we're not. I mean, part of it might just be we don't know the big stuff of the latter half of the year yet.
Or there's going to be great games that come out and we didn't expect them to come out. But when you start playing it safe doing a draft like this, you'll see that the pickings of 2018 aren't quite what they were last year. Yeah. All right, so it's time for my 4th pick. And my next pick, actually, I'm glad we're doing this now because my next pick comes out in like a week. And my pick is, you guys probably already know, Monster Hunter World. Mm-hmm. This game has not done amazingly well with the Western press. It usually comes in around an 8-ish, something like that. But this, based upon what I've played and what I've watched and what I've seen, this is the best Monster Hunter by a very wide margin. And so if the old games were getting 8s on handhelds, I have a feeling this game's going to get at least an 8.5, probably closer to a 9. All the hands-on previews based on the betas that people have played. By the way, there's a beta going on right now this weekend, which I'm about to jump into for the weekend. So if you guys want to go play it, wait till the show's over and then go check it out. But all the reports on the game, all the hands-on previews, all the gameplay I've watched, the live streams from Capcom, the game looks awesome. It's fixed a lot of issues I've had with the series, and truth be told, like I've got really hooked on this series before with Monster Hunter Tri. I've went down that rabbit hole and I know what it is. And yeah, I think the important part is that Capcom is not removing the stuff that has made the game crazy addictive for the last, I guess it's been a decade, more than a decade probably for Monster Hunter at this point. That's really kind of had that hook that keeps you coming back for more. That's not gone away. It's more of the periphery parts of the game, the presentation and kind of more of the quest design and things like that have changed. But like all the crafting and all the community stuff is still in there. And so if those games were scoring in the low 8s, I have a feeling this is going to get at least a little bit of a bump over that. And so I feel pretty safe with that at that spot.
Probably. I don't like the Monster Hunters very much, and like I feel like I don't know enough about this one and where it's going to break to have picked. It wasn't on my list just because like I don't feel like I know enough about Monster Hunter to predict how this one's going to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like.
I think the other thing
not that I think it'll do badly. It just wasn't. It's not on my radar because I just don't know. It's like a player you don't know anything about, and you're like, well, I'm not going to risk it just because.
You know, the other thing I realized preparing for this draft is that a game getting an aggregate of 9 or higher is really rare now. Really rare. I mean, you struck gold obviously with 2 97s in 1 year.
With 2 mainline Nintendo games.
Yeah. 2 97s in 1 year, but it dropped off real fast after that. I think there was maybe 2 other games that. At least high-profile games that ended up with an aggregate over 9.
Persona 5, I think, wasn't it? Like
it had a 92,
93?
Yeah. But that was pretty much it. I mean, so, you know, when you get in this 4th, 5th, 6th round, you're starting to look for stuff that's going to get you a mid-8, high-8, something like that. And I feel like Monster Hunter World is at least a pretty safe bet.
Well, I'm real happy that last year's I only had one thing under 80.
Yeah. Oh, you did amazing last year.
Which was Torment.
Yeah.
Which was, I admit, kind of like I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, one more, this one looks good. You know, I don't know.
Yep, so that's it for me. Monster Hunter World, my 4th round pick. And now it's up to you, Matt.
My next pick is Sea of Thieves.
You dirty scoundrel.
Dirty sea dog.
You dirty sea dog. You took the game that screwed me last year.
Yep, because I think it's actually going to come out this year. And
it was supposed to come out last year. It was delayed into this year.
Yeah, but we knew.
I didn't know. I wouldn't have drafted it.
You should have asked me.
You better ask somebody. So yeah, this Matt took the game that burned me last year. Although I wouldn't have won even if it had come out and got a 10 probably.
No, but I think this is going to get like a solid mid-80 kind of score, unless it's terrible, which I don't think it is.
I hope not.
Like people have, and it's fun to play at shows.
Yeah,
I wonder how
I had a blast with it at trade shows.
But I'm like, Evolve always sticks in my head. Where Evolve was a ton of fun to play at PAX and E3. And
it won like best of E3.
Yeah, it was great. Demoed incredibly well, and then you sat down and actually played it at home, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Right. It was just
It actually worked.
It worked, but it just didn't.
It was
have
too
the
complicated.
verve.
I felt like. For the average person to just
and
jump
that
into
may
that
be a problem here too. But I just feel like
I don't think so, Matt.
This thing's been in the oven so long that I have to think that they've fine-tuned it to a degree that it's going to catch. Also, the Xbox doesn't have a whole lot else going on.
Yeah.
I feel like it's going to do pretty well.
I think it's going to be extremely polished, and I think it's going to be a really cool game. And I think that'll be enough for it to get good reviews.
Right. Well, that's the other thing I'm banking on is that Microsoft's going to push it. Right. They're going to set up events. They're going to bring people in to play stuff under controlled circumstances, and that's what's going to determine the review scores, not how we're playing it in the wild.
Absolutely. Because what's going to happen is Microsoft, and in fact, there's a beta coming up real soon that I just got an email I'm going to get in on in like 2 weeks or something like that.
Soon.
But what's going to happen is that they're going to set up these sessions with all the press, and there's going to be 200, 300 people playing, and they're going to be playing that same server, and there's going to be plenty of people to play each role. And with journalists, the other part of it too is that you have to play each role, because if you're going to evaluate the game, you have to figure out, is this fun no matter what I do in this game? If I'm the captain, if I'm the guy firing the cannons, if I'm the guy mopping up the vomit in the bottom of the ship. So journalists are going to be forced to try every facet of this game. They're going to have a group of people playing with them that are incentivized to do what they're supposed to be doing. And so I could see this game getting a really good score, but then coming out and going into the wild and realizing that the average Joe doesn't want to go swab the deck.
Right.
Everybody wants to be the captain, or everybody wants to fire the cannon. And so it could fall apart once it gets out to consumers, but with knowing how we know that the review process works, I think this is a good pick. And again, I think you'll start seeing as our picks roll on here that it is a good pick.
Well, I do kind of expect this to review well and to have kind of a dissonance with the public. If I had to pick one major release this year that was going to suffer from that, I think Sea of Thieves would be it.
Yep.
But we'll see.
I'm excited for it. I hope it turns out well.
Yeah.
I hope that Rare can get back up on its feet. Its last couple
of
games.
Yeah, I mean, I would love it to be more than just like, wow, look how pretty the water is.
Yeah, I mean, Viva Pinata is great
right.
for some people. Not my cup of tea. Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts was a huge disappointment for me. And then we've seen Rare do all this Kinect stuff, and I would like for Rare to prove it to Microsoft that it can once again become a first-party powerhouse.
Look, I'm just encouraged by the fact that the ships don't have googly eyes on them.
Yeah.
So.
You haven't played the game yet, Matt.
Yeah.
It is a freaking gorgeous game, and that water, I'll never get over seeing that water. It's mind-blowing how good it looks. So we'll see if it plays as well as it looks in the very near future here. It's coming out pretty soon in addition to the beta that's coming up. So we'll see very soon. And now it's time for my next pick, my fifth pick of the draft.
This is a bold one, I think.
Yeah, I think it might be. My pick is Days Gone. PS4 exclusive. I'm kind of loading up on these.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not a bad strategy considering how they do.
Yeah.
But, I'm actually
a little concerned it may not come out.
Exactly. My question is, like, does this one come out this year? Like,
I am a little concerned about it.
I feel like it, like we talked before, like, this has to beat Last of Us 2 to the punch. But that means it still has next year.
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 is
I have a couple concerns about this game, actually. My first concern is, like you said, it may not come out this year. The game has kind of gone underground. Over the last 6 months, we haven't really seen anything from it, and there have been a couple prominent events where it probably should have shown up. That's my first concern. My second concern is that it's from a brand new studio, Sony Bend.
Right.
It has no pedigree whatsoever. We have no idea just how good this studio is.
They haven't made anything? I thought they'd done some,
I don't believe so.
I thought they'd done some like Vita stuff or something.
Maybe? I know it's never done a game like this before.
Not on this scale, yeah.
I mean, I thought for sure this is our first game, though, because we talked a lot on Game Face like a year and a half ago. Remember how we were waiting for Sony Bend's first game for, like, ever?
I like Vincent saying, like, so the first alternate for Shane is important now.
Yeah. I hope not. But here's what gave me hope. One, we've seen a lot of gameplay of this game. What we're watching right now is like
I still don't feel like
12-minute chunk.
I still don't feel like we know really what the gameplay loop is, though.
No, we really don't. You know? We have not seen. But look, we have no idea what God of Wars is either, and it has a release date for like a month and a half from now. So that doesn't concern me too much. And we have seen a good chunk of it. We've seen two different chunks that are over 10 minutes long.
Bend made all the siphon filters.
Okay.
Resistance Retribution, and Uncharted Golden Abyss.
Okay.
So
those are all pretty good games.
Yeah, those are solid.
Yeah.
And Bubsy 3D, but let's not hold that against
Yeah, but again, it's never made a game like this before.
No. Are you telling me Bubsy 3D isn't the most epic thing you've played in your lifetime?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I would say, other than just being concerned about whether it's coming out or not or how good the developer is what they've shown of the game has been really interesting and something different. It goes beyond, here's a million zombies coming at you. There's a lot of strategy in how you handle each skirmish. You can manipulate the undead to actually aid you in the game. And when you start looking at games that critics might really resonate with, you kind of have to look for stuff that does do things that are different or new. And while this isn't groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination, it does have some unique elements to it that I think could give it a little bit of a bump with critics. And so, yeah, fifth pick of the draft. I think I'm cool taking it there.
I think if it comes out, you're in good shape.
That it is a big concern, though, without a doubt. So we'll see. That's why we have alternates. All right, your fifth pick.
Fifth pick is kind of the equivalent of your Monster Hunter pick, Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Which is like a week out.
Yeah, another good reason, a good thing that we did the show today.
Yeah, also a good thing they did not make the review embargo any earlier.
Yeah, or it would have been DQ'd.
But I think this thing is going to get, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if this was in the 90s.
I don't know. Have you been playing it? Have you played the beta last weekend?
No, but I don't need to, because
the press is all over it.
The press is all over it, and Dragon Ball fans are not beholden to normal ideas of what quality is.
Yeah.
So, I think this thing, and this is like one of the most true to form depictions of Dragon Ball combat I've ever seen. Like, there, some of the big finale things and like the way the matches end and some of this stuff is like, it's mind-boggling how good and how close to the cartoon it looks.
Oh yeah.
And I think, you know, if this is reviewed by people who are fans of the property, and there's no reason it shouldn't be, they're gonna love it. Like, there's no, you know, even if it's not the most complex fighting game ever made or whatever,
it is pretty complex.
And it is.
Though.
I mean, it's definitely Marvel vs. Capcom level complex, I would say. But like,
well,
I think this thing's just gonna. I think it's gonna review through the roof.
It's an Arc System Works fighter, and so it's made Guilty Gear and BlazBlue, and it actually plays more like those games than Marvel vs. Capcom, with the exception of the tag mechanic, where you have the 3 fighters that can come in. And I did play this exhaustively last weekend. I did a playview of it. It's live on the site right now, and I had a blast with it. But it is still kind of this creaky Japanese fighter. Like, the menus are real, like, Spartan and goofy looking with weird font. And look, I realize that's not going to really affect the game's score or not. But, like, it has a story mode, but the story mode's kind of just tacked on. It's like, hey, here's a cutscene in between each one of these fights. It's nothing like Injustice 2, for example.
It doesn't have to be, though.
But here's what I'll say. The actual fighting in this game is incredible. It feels so good. Like, when I first started, I had no idea how to play it, but I got much better at this game very, very quickly. And the reason I did is because the controls are just like butter. The timing for everything, blocking, the attacks, you get it right away. And then the attacks themselves are very similar to games that you've played in the past. It's quarter circle forward, hit a button, quarter circle backwards, hit a button. So it doesn't take long to kind of learn the moves. But the strategy of the game is exceptionally deep. That part of it, even after a weekend, I still felt like I was lost on. And I also jumped in like a little later, so a lot of the people playing were just like masters of it already. And I think there was another beta before this one, right? Wasn't this the second beta? I feel like some of those guys had been playing both betas.
Oh, for sure.
And but I liked it because I got to see what high-level play of the game looks like, and it is mighty impressive. So it's a great pick. I think you're right. I think it'll get at the very least like an 8.5, and depending, maybe it ticks up there closer to a 9, maybe.
I think presentation is going to give this thing a boost.
It is gorgeous.
Whether it deserves it or not, I don't know, but I feel pretty confident of. If I had to kind of bet on which games in my list were going to be in the 90 range, I think this one would be up there, just because it's, as long as they don't mess it up.
Yeah.
It's as long as it's fun to play on a kind of a casual level for like someone who's been who plays it for a week or so. I think it's going to score real high.
I will say this too. I feel like critics are a little more forgiving with fighting games than they are other genres.
They are.
I don't know why that is.
Because they don't know anything about them.
Maybe.
Because I think there's kind of like this fear of like, I
don't know enough.
I don't know enough, so I'm just saying it was really good. Have fun, fighting game community.
Because if you tank it, it is actually really good. You're never gonna hear the end of it from the community. Yeah.
And I think this one is the perfect storm of kind of like a team that knows how to put a fighting game together, a license that makes a lot of sense, and visuals that just do that license justice in a way that almost nothing. I think maybe nothing else ever has.
Probably right.
And.
It also has a capital Z at the end of the title.
Yeah, that's great too. I mean,
that'll get it another 2 tenths.
Fighters. But yeah, even as someone who's not a Dragon Ball fan in any way, shape, or form, I'm like, this looks amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about Dragon Ball at all, and I had a blast playing this last weekend and didn't want to stop. I had to stop to get other stuff done, but...
I mean, it's not entirely accurate to the show in the sense that they don't stand there for 4 days before the fight begins. But,
there is a part of that in the game, though. Like you can stand there and scream and build.
Yeah,
your
there
ki.
is like a build up the power thing, but
which is a whole risk.
I mean, that was entire episodes in the show.
I know. I've watched it before. That's why I don't get it.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to just write it off without ever giving it a go.
I was too old when it came out.
Yeah.
But when it finally aired in America, if you were young enough, it was a very formative experience.
I have a nephew that's obsessed with it still.
Yeah.
And he's in his 20s now.
Well, we know, our friend Corrado, who is a big fan of this, because he grew up in Italy, and they aired it when we were kids. He's our age, but he was, when they aired it in the 80s in Italy, and so he grew up with it and he loves it. Like it's something that just appeals to the kid.
I think it's a good pick. It is at least it's going to get an 8 without a doubt.
Yeah, I mean,
and at your 5th pick, like that's pretty much the best you can hope for at this point.
Right.
As long as you're guaranteed an 8 or better with your 5th, you got to be pretty happy with that. So good pick. Now it's time for my next choice, and this one is the one that you remarked more on, I think, any of my picks.
Yeah. Because I went back and forth on including this one on my list, and I just decided it's too risky.
Okay. Well, let me make my pick, and then you can explain why you think it's risky. So my pick is The Crew 2. If any of you guys watched our E3 coverage last year, this would not be a surprise, because I was really, really impressed with The Crew 2 at E3. Driving games, it's getting hard to kind of create your own space, your own wiggle room in that genre at this point, and I feel like this game absolutely does. It's a multi-discipline racing game, but transitioning from one discipline to another is completely seamless. I've never played a racing game like that before. I did get to spend time actually playing it at the show. Everything worked as advertised. The demos that they've shown you are not a bunch of bullcrap. This is actually how the game plays. I was really impressed with it. The fact that it was delayed does give me a little bit of pause, but it is a really ambitious driving game. And so it didn't surprise me that much, but it did give me a little pause when I went to pick the game.
I just feel like I felt kind of the same way about the first Crew, where it's like when you first played it, like it does what it says. It it gives you this big map and all this stuff. It's a cool game. It demos well. And then when I got it and I sat down to really play it, after like 3 hours, I just realized there was too much crap to do. I didn't have any way to focus on anything, and I just felt kind of overwhelmed, and I just sort of backed away from it. And like my fear, and I am looking forward to this game. This is one of the games that's definitely on my short list of things I definitely want to play. And I was disappointed that it was delayed too, although I hope that it was delayed to make it better.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But like, I just have, in my head, I have this nightmare scenario where it gets like 68.
Oh boy,
that
would be a crusher.
Where it just doesn't come together.
Better than a 0, but not much.
They don't find a way to kind of make it gel and make it something that's compelling to keep playing and keep doing.
Well, I think the first Crew actually scored higher than that, though.
It might have, but like I feel like game reviewers often don't have as much mercy the second time around.
No, you're right.
If you don't fix that
problem. And that's totally
fair.
fair. I mean, that's completely fair.
And I just can't. There's no real way to really know that until it makes it. And like, I hope I'm wrong, but I just wasn't willing to risk it. So yeah, and I think this is a brave pick. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, in addition to playing it, I did sit in with a demo. And one thing I will say is that the developer who handled the demo basically repeated a lot of the stuff that you just said, and said we are very well aware of that. And he also said, despite the issues with the first game was very successful.
Oh, the first game did really well.
It's done, financially.
Right.
With critics, it did okay.
Well, it's like Wildlands, 72,
right. Yeah.
but like sold really,
like
really well.
Yeah.
But like that's the kind of thing I'm worried about is that you look at Wildlands even because I finally got it. I'm like I should probably play the top selling game of the year, and I got it on sale and I played it, and even now I loaded up for that Predator thing. That was pretty awesome. But you look at that map and it's just too much.
Overwhelming.
It's so many things, and you're just like. Like part of me does have sort of this affinity for the kind of the Ubisoft checklist map thing, where it's just like go through and do little stupid things until everything has a little check mark next to it.
OCD nightmare.
Yeah. But like sometimes I look at that and I'm just like, I'm never gonna get there,
Look, I did that with open world games a long time ago. By the time I got to Assassin's Creed 3, that was it.
Yeah, and like the Crew 1.
I'm never going to 100% any of these games. I just don't have the time or the motivation to do it.
That's the sad thing is I have 100% of all the Assassin's Creed games.
Origins? Did you just...
I didn't 100% Origins. I'm still working on it.
Okay.
But I did do all those stupid DLC not DLC, but like the timed trials things.
Oh, you did?
I did them around level 36, so you don't have to be level 40.
Okay.
It just took a while because they're stupid. All three of them are the same boss fight with different attacks. And it took a long time at that level, but by doing them I got my levels up pretty fast. And then it turned out that I couldn't even get the thing you're supposed to be rewarded by.
Because you weren't high level enough?
Well, no, because you have to wait till the event happens again. So they did each one at a time, and then around Christmas they did all three at once, and I did all three, and they're like, oh, well, you have to like you have to complete it another time.
What?
But it doesn't count if you do it again in the same event. You have to wait for them to reactivate it, I guess. So I haven't actually gone back and done that since then. But there's still 3 areas in that map I haven't seen yet. Like the game is gigantic.
And you're right, the crew 2 could be like that. It could just be this thing that's just so big.
I never got out of the frickin' Midwest in the crew 1. Like, I got bogged down in Illinois and like around Detroit, and I'm like, I just want to go to Kansas. I just want to go I just want to make it to Texas, and I keep getting like sidetracked by like speed trap races and shit.
Yeah.
Like it was so much crap being thrown at you that I couldn't focus.
I think the other thing that has me excited about this game, though, is that it is a true arcade-style racer. It's
which you've said many times, like there isn't one of those.
No, it's like we call Forza Horizon an arcade racer, but it's really not. Like when you think of arcade racers of yore, this is the game that you're talking about. Crazy jumps, insane tracks, a lot more action, certainly far more over the top than any driving sim. And I just think it's got a good formula. And again, 6th pick, I'm looking for an 8.2, 8.4 to be happy. And I think this game should be able to supply it. And again, Ubisoft's commitment to quality is pretty high.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance.
It typically does not put out junk, especially over the last couple of years where it's kind of reined in its annual sequelitis that it's been.
Yeah, I think there's a good chance it'll score well, but at the same time, I feel like there's also a good chance that like reviewers are going to be cynical about it and just sort of look at it and be like, it's a little better, but it's fine, 7.2 or something. Like,
the other problem too is that
which would not be the problem with the game, but it would be just sort of I guess I'm a little worried that reviewers aren't going to give this one a fair shake.
Well, the other problem too is that when you try to do a multi-disciplined racing game, you're increasing your chances of failure. It's like if it's like just a driving game, it's much easier to nail it. When you have to nail
like the boats might just suck.
Right.
Like we don't know.
The physics for the boats could be terrible. The water doesn't react realistically to the boats. The plane controls could be erratic or way too rash. I mean, you're right. There's several things that could set this game up to not score well. But again, I played it, and I sat and watched a demo and listened to them talk about what their focus was in developing it. And I'm pretty confident that it should at least get me an 8 here in the 6 hole. So,
well, I hope you're right, because I'm looking forward to it.
It looks like fun just watching the B-roll that we have there. So we'll see. What's your 6th pick, Matt?
My 6th pick is Vampire.
This, to me, was your riskiest pick.
Could be. I think
you should probably tell people. Some people may not even know what it is.
So Vampire was an action RPG kind of thing. From Don't Nod, the people who made Life is Strange, the first, not the prequel, but the first one,
the original. Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a departure for them, but I think
a lot of a departure.
I think it's going to have a lot of like story-driven elements, the way Life is Strange did, though. And I'm just sort of basically banking on studio quality level continuing to their second project. The fact that they were willing to step away from from Life is Strange to do this in the interim before they do Life is Strange 2 says to me that they have an idea that they think they know is worth pursuing, and they have some inspiration happening here, which is kind of the Horizon Zero Dawn effect, where I'm just like, okay, you guys know you want to make this, and that usually is a positive sign. And I feel like they've got a lot of talent over there, and I feel like they're going to deliver, and it might surprise everybody. And I'm pretty sure it's coming out this year. So
yeah, I have big concerns about this game in this pick, because if I think about playing the original Life is Strange, the parts that were the worst parts of the game were the parts where they actually gave you more control, and it was more like a traditional video game. Storytelling, writing, facial animation, all that stuff, top shelf. And I am very excited for Vampire personally for that very reason. To have a great narrative built around vampires, I think that it has sort of the potential to be something big. But it's an action RPG, and having that studio having never really worked with combat at all, that makes me really nervous. I may have drafted this later on, or maybe as an alternate, but the 6th pick seems a little high to me. But it could end up being this darling that comes out of nowhere, and we could be talking about Don't Nod like we talked about Guerrilla this year, where we're like, holy cow, Guerrilla made these sterile shooters for like a decade, and then all of a sudden they bust out with Horizon Zero Dawn. It could be the same deal with Don't Nod.
Yeah, I think maybe, and also I'm hoping there's sort of a thing going on, like you said, with the Crew 2 development team knowing what they didn't quite get right before.
They could have hired people to come in, and
or they might be working on it at a different angle. We all know what good action RPGs feel like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe you didn't. Maybe that just wasn't the focus of Life is Strange. They weren't able to put that kind of time in to make it feel better. Because in the end, it didn't hurt Life is Strange.
Yeah.
So I'm not really willing to. The real thing here is like in terms of how high the pick is I felt like this was the last thing on my list that you might also go for.
Got ya. So I was going to ask you because I was going to say part of draft strategy in fantasy football, and this is one part where fantasy football and fantasy video game drafts actually connect, is knowing when to pick the game, knowing who your opponent is, what they like, and where you think they might take that game, or in fantasy football, where they might take that player. And I would have... So I see you're trying to head me off at the pass because you want to get it before I do, but I probably wouldn't have taken this until like one of my last couple picks.
Right, but like what I'm saying is like, and as we'll go through, nothing else you picked was anything that was on my list at all.
No, okay.
So it was actually the right time to pick it because
yeah.
everything else I wanted I got, and everything else you picked was not on my short list.
Okay.
So I'm like, if it had worked out differently, like I probably agree with you and where I put it, but I feel like this pick came at the right time because I think it was the only other thing we were both looking at.
And I mean, ultimately, the order that you pick the games in doesn't matter.
Right.
It's not like you get bonus points because you picked it at a certain place. All it matters is that it's on your roster, it comes out. So, totally get it. All right, it's time for me to go to my seventh.
Especially because of how, and this will become evident, especially because of how the existence of the alternates changed some of the later picks.
Yep.
So
yeah, this draft gets really interesting at the end, by the way. So stick around. All right, it's time for my seventh pick, and this is the one that I probably regret the most from this entire draft. This is the one I feel bad at myself about picking, and I feel like so what they call it in fantasy football is reaching. When you draft a player earlier than you needed to because you really wanted him. When you could have got another player and then maybe got that same player you picked early, like 5 rounds later. I reached for this game without a doubt, and that game is Detroit Become Human. I regret this pick, I will say right now. I mean,
you regret picking it at all, or you regret picking it here?
I don't regret picking it at all because it is coming out this year. And again, like I'm crazy paranoid about picking games that aren't going to come out. But after the draft, I didn't feel too bad about it at the time. You did make like a comment in the text thread, like, "Oh, like what are you doing? Like that could get a 6 or whatever."
I think this game finally be the moment where the gaming press sees through David Cage's bullshit.
But that's the thing, they did. So after the draft was over, I obviously took your words to heart like I always do. And I went back and looked at the aggregate for Beyond Two Souls, and it got a 62.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, crap. But I will say, four times the charm.
This is a more compelling premise than Beyond
Two
Souls.
It is. It absolutely is.
I just think the execution...
And Heavy Rain, for that matter, in my opinion.
Heavy Rain could have been a more interesting... But, like, that's a different hour.
Yeah. And it would take an hour.
Yeah. But this, like... I think it's going to get some real mixed reviews. Like this sequence here, I think, is where the hostage scenario they've shown is real interesting.
Yeah, but they keep showing it over and over again.
And the child abuse thing they show is one of the most ham-handed pieces of crap I've ever
seen. And that was my big caveat with it, too.
There are 80 sitcoms with a more nuanced treatment of the subject matter, and I feel like, and now that you've got this, the accusations against Quantic Dream about being a toxic workplace and all that, and he invoked Ellen Page as his defense for that. I'm like, dude, do you remember when she almost sued you for putting a naked version of her in your game? Like, there is some weird stuff going on here, and I think it's going to sour some of the press.
Well, as you said earlier, a lot of the press, politically, would have an issue with some of the stuff in this game. Yeah, I mean, look, like I said, I regret this pick totally. After I started doing more research, after we finished the picks, I was like, oh, what did I do?
And like I can't totally blame you. I mean, it wasn't in my 10, but it was on my list of things to go to if you picked other things I wanted.
Yeah.
And during our text conversation, I deleted it because after I was like, you know what? No, that's not a safe pick. I only have that on here because I know it's coming out this year. I don't have it on there because I think it's going to score well. So I got rid of it.
We'll see. I am really loading up on PS4 exclusives, by the way. I have Sony's entire first-party lineup.
Not a bad strategy, really. I mean, they're pretty good. They're pretty good at doing the game thing.
Well, it's strange because Heavy Rain, to me, was very close to being a great game. There was a huge plot hole that ruined like the whole game to me, but if that were not there...
Also, I'm pretty sure you can attest that if you go to a police station in Philadelphia, the cops do not have French accents.
No. Definitely not. But David Cage's games have this way of just screwing the pooch on one element so bad that it's almost unforgivable. And like with Heavy Rain, there was a plot hole that was so big on a story-driven game, and I was just like, I can't even like this, because if the story is total garbage, what else is there in these games? But to me, the premise of this is far more interesting than Heavy Rain or Beyond Two Souls. So it does get a leg up, but yeah, I regret picking this so high. It may have ended up being like one of my alternates or whatever.
I just feel like again, the premise is interesting, but it's like I keep letting David Cage loose on the subject matter is not going to do you any favors.
No, you're absolutely
right. It's like you have a
shelf
shelf full of beautiful things that are all arranged very well, and like you feel like, oh, you could do something cool with like moving these around. And then David Cage is like a giant Labrador Retriever that just you stick its ass right in front of and it just the tail wags and it just knocks everything over. That's what's going to happen here, I think.
If this were a controversy draft, would you pick this first or Far Cry 5 first?
I think I'd pick this first.
Yeah.
Because like Far Cry 5 is going to irritate some people, but I don't think you can like really get past the idea that it's a good game. It's going to be a game that's fun to play. The problem, like you say, the problem with David Cage's games when they fail on the execution and the narrative sense is there's no gameplay to fall back on.
No, there's not.
I didn't have fun playing Beyond Two Souls beyond not enjoying the story in places. It's like, if I wasn't enjoying the story I was being told, nothing about that game was keeping me there.
The other weird thing for me is, typically with the games that I like, I'm a gameplay guy. It's kind of odd that I chose this game.
Yeah,
It really has none. We did do this draft at like midnight last night.
It was late.
I'm going to chalk it up to being tired, but I do regret this pick. We'll see. It could end up being...
it could be,
At this point, if it gets a 6.5... bonus.
Yeah.
That's the way I'm looking at it. I've kind of written this one off. We'll see. Maybe I'll get lucky for once.
Maybe you'll get super lucky and it'll actually get a 0 and you can substitute.
I don't think that counts. I think if it's released, it has to stay.
I think we can make a rule that if a game literally gets a 0 Metacritic average, you get to substitute.
I think if you pick a game that gets a 0 Metacritic average, you're kicked out of the league. You're done. You're out.
You win a special trophy.
Yeah, you have to find somebody else to be in the league after that. So, yeah, I regret that pick. We'll see how it works out. Matt, what's your next choice?
My next pick is my old standard NBA 2K19.
Yes, Matt every year chooses NBA 2K in this. It Madden...
Always gets an 80-something.
It's maddening that you do it. But what is more maddening to me is that I always forget that you do it. I always forget. I always forget that you pick this every year, and it's just a surefire at least 8, and on good years, like a 9. Last year, I think it rounded out at like an 82 or something like that.
Yeah, it didn't do as well as normal.
But that was with like the crazy controversy of the microtransactions and everything. If 2K cleans that up...
Right.
Where does it score? It scores probably a 9 at your 7th pick.
And we'll see. If they don't, that's the thing is the press is not going to let them get away with it this time.
They didn't this year though.
They didn't, but I think if they don't clean it up, a lot of reviews did miss it though. They didn't give it the weight that the community decided they should have. And I think games especially sports games are so community driven that I think there will be an adjustment in how this year's game is evaluated, and if 2K has not found a way to make the microtransactions not offensively stupid and interfering with how the game progression works, they're going to get tagged for it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons this one's a little lower than maybe it should have, because there is that feeling of I should get this one before Shane heads me off at my own.
And I would have never picked this again.
And
you picked it, I completely forgot about it.
So it's more of a gamble than it's ever been before, but I'm hoping 2K learns its lesson because 2K is not EA.
Yeah, and it's funny. I was doing research for this and just reading a lot of lists, people's most anticipated, blah blah blah, and one caveat in almost all of them was, we're not going to include any sports games. Like they just chopped them out. And I think when I read that, I was like, oh, and I just kind of took sports and just plucked it into the back of my brain. It's so funny, though. I'm so into sports.
Yeah.
But you're the one that picks this every year, and I'm not. So I'm not a basketball fan, by the way. But
neither am I.
Yeah.
Although when I was a
Only
kid,
baseball I like less.
when
than
I was a
basketball.
very, very, very young kid, like 2 and 3 years old, my dad was a giant USF fan, University of San Francisco, and because that's where he went, and he would go to, he would take us to, we'd go to basketball games up there, and I don't remember this because I was 2, but apparently I would just be up in the bleachers screaming my head off and rooting for, like the angriest, like most like enthusiastic sports, and everybody would comment on like, oh, he's such a big fan. I go USF, USF Don in training kind of thing. And like within like 5 years, I did not care about any of it. Like it's like I look at basketball is the one sport that I just can't like.
I don't
most
care.
sports, if they're on TV, if I'm in the room, like I can watch them and sort of pick up on it and kind of get into it and enjoy it well enough for what it is. Yeah. Basketball, I'm completely uninterested in basketball.
Yeah,
I don't know what it is.
Basketball and baseball to me, I don't care.
I like baseball.
In fact, I think I like soccer better than basketball and baseball.
I would say I like soccer better than basketball. I mean, I played soccer for 4 years, so I'm biased.
Yeah.
But like football for all the Euros watching. But like I watch a high level soccer game and like. I mean, at least for me, I understand why they call it the beautiful game.
Oh, for
like it's
sure.
amazing to
really
watch.
It really is, yeah.
And like, it makes me wish I liked soccer more because like the idea of like because it's always happening. It's always on.
There's never an off season.
Something that matters is always happening in soccer. Like Sterling McGarvey, our friend Sterling McGarvey, he's super into soccer and he has something to care about every weekend,
every day,
all the time. And like it feels like it must be so much fun, so cool to like
never have an off season.
Never have an off season. Sit down on any weekend and know like you can invite your friends over and like there's something to watch and something to talk about and something to root for and be excited about. Like I am jealous of soccer fans who are super into it. That seems like a really cool sport to be your favorite thing.
Yeah, I'm an NFL and NHL guy through and through.
I like the NFL and I don't watch NHL on TV, but. Man, I love going to hockey games.
Hockey's probably the best live sport to go watch.
It's so much fun.
And I think people who say they don't like hockey, they need to go to a game.
Yeah, you need to go to a hockey game.
It will
it's so much
give
fun.
you an appreciation for the sport.
And this is me talking. Like it's just a great.
I was surprised
experience.
you didn't wear. So Matt has this jersey.
Oh yeah.
That he wears to Super Bowl parties sometimes. And what does it say on the front? Your team name here or something?
It says city name.
Yeah.
City name sports team. It's from somethingawful.com.
It's great.
It's a city name sports team, number 00, and on the back it says popular player.
Right.
Where the name would go.
I thought you might rock it today, but...
No, I didn't think of that. I forgot about that.
Super Bowl party next weekend.
Yeah, Super Bowl party.
You have to dust it off. Anyway, off on a tangent as we often do. So yeah, your pick was NBA 2K19.
Yeah, it's just a super straightforward like strategy pick there.
Okay. So here's where the draft starts getting a little more interesting. This is where Matt and I kind of mentally shifted gears and recognized the fact that, hey, we have 2 alternates. And it was also kind of where, before we did the draft, I'm like, man, changing the rules and bringing in the alternates may take away the strategy. But as the draft went on, I started to realize, okay, it took away some other strategy, but it added a new layer. And this is where Matt and I kind of recognized that and started saying, well, okay, we have 2 games to burn, kinda. And so we started picking games that might be a little risky. And my first pick in that vein is Forza Horizon 4. Now, typically...
And we don't know this game exists.
It has not been officially announced yet.
But it probably does.
So...
If history is any indication.
Exactly. For the last 8 years... Now, it has been an on and off cycle. Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon. Forza Motorsport, Forza Horizon. This is the year for Forza Horizon. Forza Horizon 3 is my favorite driving game of this entire generation. It did actually get an aggregate of like a 9.1. And the studio, what the real issue for me is, the studio has just been brought up in rumors of pulling a gorilla. It's made this awesome driving game for these years, but now suddenly it may be creating this other game, which is
Fable.
Well,
I think Playground's big enough to do 2 things at once.
I hope so.
They are.
But I mean,
also, if it sounds like they just started on this Fable project,
It's true.
in which case, what have they been doing for 2 years?
It's true. It's still risky.
It is risky in the sense we don't know it exists, but like I feel like as risky things we don't know they exist go, this is pretty solid.
The upside here is pretty big.
Yeah.
To be able to get a game at the
If you're right, this is probably a 90 at least.
Right, in the 8th spot,
Right.
which is pretty unheard of.
And and you got to back up if it doesn't come out, if it doesn't actually happen to exist.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I think the evidence is pretty good. Just every 2 years thing is pretty good. Also consider that Forza Horizon 3 has not gotten a 4K or an HDR upgrade.
I think it's about to, though, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so, yeah.
But it just makes sense that
here's
it's all
Xbox One
fixing
X.
together. It's
Yeah.
all fitting together. Like Forza Horizon for the Xbox One X feels like it's, you want to keep that ball rolling, that train rolling, that car rolling.
Yeah.
And it's, it all hinge on where it takes place, but they've nailed that for three games in a row, and I'm sure they'll do it again.
Yeah, just personally, I'm really excited for it. I can't wait to play.
And it feels like it must be like breathing to them to make these by now. So
I'd hope so. We'll see.
Playground is a pretty big company. It's and clearly they've produced consistently and well and quality-wise, it's all up there. They're a top-level outfit, I think. You have proven themselves to be a top-level outfit, and I have no problem believing that Microsoft would be like, here's a lot more money, expand, add another team, make this Fable thing. I don't think they're going to shut down one of their top franchises, which I think Horizon has become.
That's what I was going to say.
To do Fable instead. I think they're adding Fable.
Microsoft not releasing this would be leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yes,
so,
for sure.
I think into my thinking, but we'll see.
I think you're 95% golden on this one.
Well, you make me feel a little bit better. I appreciate that.
In fact, when you said
You're
that,
a good pal.
When you said that out, when you texted that, I was just like, I can't believe I didn't think of that. It was like
it's NBA 2K for me.
It just didn't click in my Forza Horizon 4 did not click in my head.
Let's see, my fear too, and I'll say this now, but I didn't say it during the draft. My fear was when I picked the Crew 2 that it would jog your memory, and you'd be like, "What other driving games?" Oh, Forza Horizon 4.
Never entered my head. Never entered my head.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how it works out. Again, we have 2 alternates coming up that could fill in a gap if it does not get released this year. We'll see. Matt, what's your 8th pick?
7th pick?
This will be your 8th.
Eh,
You can look at the graphics on the monitor.
Weird. 8, 9, 10. Okay, sure. Math is hard. My 8th pick is Nintendo Labo Variety Pack. Because I don't know how good any of this stuff's going to be, but I can hear the gaming press spooging all over themselves, all over the cardboard.
Well,
right
you can just go on Twitter and see that happening.
Yeah. This thing is going to review through the roof. I picked this one over the giant robot one because I think this one's going to have more variety.
Yeah. It'll be the most
called the
popular.
Variety Pack. It's
After all.
Yeah, and this is going to be the one that all the game journalists get to do. The things like, I played this with my child, and it was the most magical experience of my gaming life. It's going to be that crap, and it's going to get high scores because of it. And I think it's really silly, but I think it's going to review extremely well, so I picked it.
I think that's a very smart pick. And you're right, a lot of games journalists now at this point, they're not 20 to 25, 26-year-old kids. They're late 20s, 30s, 40s, and they have families.
They got things like that. I look forward to the reviews that talk about how the kid sat on the cardboard piano 5 minutes into it, and now they can't get a replacement unless they 3D print something. But it's I think it's going to be a big deal. I think obviously we're going to have a separate video going up about the Labo. I think you said, but it's going to make a splash in the press. I don't know how the public will receive it, but
it already made a splash with the public. It's been the top seller in games on Amazon since it was announced.
Yeah, well, it's Nintendo.
But like we've said before, sales don't matter with this. It's how the press receives it. So
I think the press will be all over this thing, and I think beyond that,
I think they already are.
Yeah, but I think the mainstream press will be as well.
So this is the type of stuff that ends up on USA Today and Yahoo.com.
When people said oh my God, why are they doing it? Why are they doing this? Because local news will air this stuff.
Oh yeah,
because
absolutely.
Because the Wiimote, the Wii original, it makes for a great visual.
I went on 2 different newscasts to show off the Wii when it launched. Mm-hmm.
And
Two local LA stations.
This is that all over again.
It's visual.
This is part of the problem of the Wii U. It didn't have anything that did that.
Yeah.
And this one, It's a cardboard piano. It's a fucking great visual. It's like you can put that on any little human interest news feature thing and have people go, oh, that's cool. Like that's the whole point, and it's going to work.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's a good pick. Okay, so here
You're lucky I didn't pick the giant robot one next.
Yeah, which you
Just keep
absolutely
going.
could have. We're coming down the home stretch here. Just a couple picks and 2 alternates left. And my 9th pick is my next to last pick in the draft, Valkyria Chronicles 4.
Interesting.
And I totally realize that the last couple games have not been well received. They kind of moved over to handheld.
This is supposedly a return
This is the return to form. The first game, its Metacritic average is like an 86 or 87. You would hope that the development team has learned the old dog has learned a few new tricks by this point. Again, everything I've seen of this game at trade shows, via media that's been released for it, has been impressive. Just looking at the media that's been released, you can tell it is absolutely a callback to the first Valkyria Chronicles. It's a unique game. There aren't really any other games on the market that are like this, that have this kind of a budget and these kinds of production values. Always my big concern, though, particularly when you're dealing with the Western press, is the cultural differences, the translation, how does that go? The voice acting, how does that end up? With some publishers, you don't have to worry about it. Square Enix, not a big deal.
No,
you know, Square Enix.
Sega's real.
Yeah.
Varied.
Yes. Let's be kind, I guess. If this were a Square Enix game, I wouldn't have those concerns. It's not. It's a Sega game. Sega's translation, importation policies and standards have been all over the map. So that makes me a little nervous.
Complicated by the inclusion of Atlas because they own them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Atlas tends to, I think, do a better job than the mainline Sega stuff does these days.
And some people may see this and be like, oh my god, I can't believe that game was even drafted. But when we finish this up, we'll actually run through the games that were kind of on the fringe for us, and you'll see why a game like Valkyria Chronicles 4 ended up getting drafted. But it is my 9th pick, and I'm not counting on a gigantic score here. If it gets an 8, that's total bonus to me.
I mean, it's a solid pick. I thought about it. I didn't, in part because I've been burned by this series so much that I just don't trust it anymore. Yeah. But that may be my own failing, and it'll probably do well.
We'll see. But there's definitely some red flags with this game, but pickings are pretty slim around this point. And again, we'll point that out when we wrap this up. So, Matt, what's your 9th pick?
So here's where we start getting into the long shots.
Yep.
Kingdom Hearts 3.
I think that's a long shot. Didn't we just talk about this a month ago and you said no way in hell it comes out this year?
There's a lot of rumors swirling around right now that they're going to announce a 2018 release for it.
Okay. I did notice.
That doesn't necessarily mean I believe it's going to make it, but it does mean that if there's a chance, I don't want to be left without it.
I did notice that almost every most anticipated games list had this game on it. But I would also add that every single list had Anthem.
Right.
And every single list had The Last of Us Part 2.
Right. The anticipated stuff doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
But I think, just the stuff I'm hearing, it's not impossible. And if I have that alternate ready to go when this thing doesn't come out this year, I'd rather have had the shot at having it on the list because I think it's going to review huge.
No, of course it will, without a doubt. I mean, if it comes out, this is probably the pick of the draft.
Could be.
Well, maybe not, actually. Both of our next 2 picks are pretty good ones.
Yeah. And I don't know if anything beats Red Dead this year.
I don't know. It could not be good. It could,
but if they deliver, and if they deliver on what people are thinking when we see those trailers.
Well, when I say best pick of the draft, I don't mean that it's going to score the highest. I mean where it was drafted for what you get for it, essentially. Like Forza Horizon 4. Like that could be a good pick because it gets a high score, but I got it with the 8th pick instead of top 5 or whatever. And if Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out and you got it in the 9th pick, hello.
Yeah.
That's the game changer. That's a league winner right there. They potentially could be. So we'll see. I would be shocked if it comes out this year.
Yeah, me too.
But if it does,
doesn't lose me anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, and here is my last regular pick of the draft, my 10th pick. Again, 2 alternates coming up here, so we're not completely done. But my last pick in the SIFTD 2018 Video Game Fantasy Draft is Shadow of the Tomb Raider.
Woo!
So, it's due. It's been 3 years since Rise of the Tomb Raider. Just 2 weeks, or a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the studio came out and said, we're going to announce this game, and it's going to come out very soon after it's announced. So they're saying very limited space between debut and when it actually releases. I can't imagine that they would be talking about this unless it was coming out this year.
I would think so, yeah.
And it is time.
Well, also, let's not forget, there's a Tomb Raider movie this year.
Absolutely.
Based on this version of Tomb Raider.
Right. And so I don't think it's even really that crazy of a pick.
No, it's not.
I'm maybe even more confident that Tomb Raider is going to come out this year than Forza Horizon 4.
It's not unreasonable.
If I would not have got the story about Playground working on something else, I would say that's phooey. I'd believe Forza first. But with that little caveat in there for Forza, I'm more confident that maybe Tomb Raider comes out this year than that. And again, we have the 2 alternates, and I drafted this whole time knowing that basically I had 2 picks to blow, essentially. I knew that, and then I had to make sure that I followed that up with the strategy of my alternates have to be rock solid locks to come out this year, which I did do that. So Forza Horizon 4 and Tomb Raider were the games that I took the risks on, knowing that I had the 2 alternates, but also knowing that I had to be really conservative when I picked my alternates. So that's it. My last pick of the regular draft, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. What's your last pick, Matt?
Well, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Elder Scrolls 6.
Huzzah! I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think it's great.
So here's the thing. We don't know anything about this. There's no indication that
they've denied it's even in existence. Yeah.
But if this isn't coming out this year, I don't know what Bethesda is doing this year. Like
exactly. They have to make money.
Either they've decided they don't need revenue in 2018, or Elder Scrolls is coming out.
And the other thing too is that their MO is announce, release.
Move. Yeah, go. And I still say, if they announce that they're doing a press conference at E3, I'm right.
Oh, yeah.
I win.
You probably will be right.
Because
they're going to show us Battle Cry?
Right. And if I am right, that's a 90-something.
Oh, easily.
In the 10th pick spot.
Oh, yeah. Boom. I mean, it could literally be close to a 10.
Yeah.
Although there is a little bit of a wild card with Bethesda's Elder Scrolls games, because they do have a lot of bugs typically at launch.
Right. Well, and also, you never know. You never know where the first game that similar to
where they're going to rebel,
where they're finally going to see through the bullshit. You know what I mean? Because
I don't know if it's bullshit though. These games are really good.
I mean, I love them, but you got to admit, it's time to ditch the Gamebryo engine. It's time to have the combat be a little something more than just whack, whack, whack.
Yeah.
It's time for a little progression here in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay in these games beyond just the exploration. And if they do an Elder Scrolls 6 that does not do that, does not advance the mechanics of this series in a way that we expect from something that's a new generation and new tech, I feel like it could at least be in the 80s. If it could get dinged for not moving forward enough, for resting on its laurels and using that frickin' Gamebryo engine again. Really, that's the main thing. I want to stop using that engine. Oh my God, it's like driving a cardboard box.
I mean, hey,
which is okay on the Switch, but give me a.
But look, it's been so long.
Yeah.
Bethesda has absolutely had enough time to write a brand new engine for this game.
Right. Well, it's like I was leaving. My girlfriend made a because she knows what I picked, and she made a comment about I'm like if this isn't what they're working on for this year. I don't know what the hell they're doing.
What are they doing?
And she's like, they're putting Skyrim on everything. I'm like, they already did that.
That's done.
It's on everything.
There's no platform left.
You can play Skyrim on our toaster. There's no
on our refrigerator.
No room.
No, I think that's actually a really solid pick. I would not be shocked at all if that game is announced at E3 and released in November.
Yeah, and if it's not, I got an alternate on deck.
Yep. So. And this, again, I'm really glad that we changed this. Mm-hmm. Because it did it lets you take some risks here and there. Yeah. Drafts had become, at least me personally, I'd become so risk averse that it also almost wasn't fun anymore. And you weren't getting to profile the better games. Because by the end of the draft, I was picking these games. I'm like, well, I hope it gets a 5. I like that we've changed it up this year and included these alternates so we can go a little bit pie in the sky here and there on this draft. So, so now we left. There's two alternates for both of us. My first alternate is a pick that you hate, A Way Out.
Well, Well, I don't hate it in the sense that I think it's going to screw you, but
Well, you are not a fan of the game.
no. And I don't think this is going to review well. I think it's going to, people will look at it and say, oh, it's cool, couch co-op, but I think like once you realize like, oh, we're pushing laundry carts around with two guys we don't really like very much, like you're going to get in a David Cage scenario where it's like, it doesn't look very fun to play and it doesn't look very interesting to watch.
I don't think most of the game takes place in the prison, though. I think you get out and then you...
Well, you go out and go meet the family and friends of all these two guys I don't care about. So, yeah, thrilling.
Well, first of all, these next two picks for me, this one and the next one, were just...
It is coming out this year.
Stone cold locks. It's coming out.
No question.
This game, by the way, I mean, again, it's kind of irrelevant to our draft, but this game was on every single most anticipated list, and in a lot of cases was in like the top 10. And again, this is about what the press thinks about the game, and the same people that are making these lists who have played this game, the same people who are making these lists who have played it are saying, hey, it's in my top 10 most anticipated. It could suck. It'd be terrible. But
how many anticipated lists was No Man's Sky on?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Once you get your hands on something, it's different than being previewed.
But you love No Man's Sky.
I did, but I also acknowledged that it wasn't, what people expected it to be, and it averaged something like a 70.
Yeah.
So
again, this is my alternate.
Right.
So look, if Forza Horizon or Tomb Raider doesn't come out this year, and I have to get a 7 in their place, I'm totally fine with that because the upside of getting Forza or Tomb Raider is like an 8 or a high 8 or a 9. I'm totally cool with that. So the other part for me too. I just think
this game looks awful. Like I don't.
It's like you've been hating on this game ever since it was announced.
Yeah.
I'm far more open to it than you are. It's not even about being open. It just resonates with me a little more. And the other part of it too is that
it's all your prison time.
Yeah. So. The other part of it too is that this developer has created a very good cooperative game already.
Yeah, Brothers was very good. Yeah. I like Brothers.
And it wasn't just good because the story was great, which it was. But the cooperative elements of the game were really good and really fun and really compelling.
The cooperative elements were my thumbs.
Yeah.
I didn't play that co-op. I played it, you control each brother with a different analog stick, basically.
But
this is not
the idea of creating puzzles for two separate, disparate characters to solve as one, that's essentially what this game is. And so I do have faith that the studio can handle the whole concept of the game, at least fairly well. As to whether you like the characters or the plot or whatever, that really is the wild card, I guess. But I do have a lot of faith that they can make a compelling cooperative game.
Probably can't. The premise leaves me completely ice cold. Yeah. I don't care about any of it. And I also don't think the animation is very good. Like that scene where he just
No, you're right.
Looks awful.
You're absolutely right.
Like none of that looks believable to me. And I thought director, whoever, I thought he was an embarrassment at the Game Awards. No, just in general, I am not.
Did you watch my episode of Geif where I laid into him?
Yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm with you there, but
probably not a bad pick.
This is nothing personal. It's just fantasy. That's all it is. So we'll see. It is coming. It's scheduled for release in March. I figured even if it gets delayed, it's definitely going to come out by the end of the year. I definitely played it safe here a bit with this one. So we'll see. But I feel okay with it being an alternate.
Yeah, you will never get a 0 on this one.
Well, you don't know, but
I don't think it's
chances are good I won't get a 0, and I may not even need it anyway. So
I mean, unless he like sets a car on fire.
Unless the Oscars assassinates him.
EA cancels the game or something. I don't see a scenario in which this doesn't.
The Oscar sniper comes after him and gets him. All right, what's your first alternate, Matt?
My first alternate is Soul Calibur 6.
That's a solid pick.
Which we do not have a solid release date for this yet, but I'm pretty certain it'll be out this year.
They have said 2018.
Yeah, and Namco's got a pretty fast turnaround on these fighting games, usually like Tekken. Well, maybe not. Tekken 7 took a while, but like once they started promoting it properly, it came out more or less when they said it was going to, I believe. And this looks pretty well done, more or less, and it seems like a solid backup. It'll at least get in the 7s.
Oh, at least. I was surprised, actually. I went and looked for... this was on my list as well. I went and looked at... Soul Calibur 5 actually got like an 8.6 aggregate.
Really? I didn't realize
I was shocked by that. And it was right on my fringe. Like, I think you picked this, and I was like, oh, this would have been like one of my alternates if you didn't pick it already. It was going to be my second alternate. The one concern I do have is it has shown so little of this game. Literally, all it has right now is this one match, and they use footage from this match to cut the first trailer, and then they put out the full match, which is what we're watching now.
Well, to be fair, it was only the first media dump they've done.
Sure.
So after they announced it.
And they did have another 11 months.
And E3, I'm sure they'll blow it out at E3, and because what else do they really have?
They have Dragon Ball Fighters.
Yeah, well, that's already out though.
Yeah.
By that point, this is going to be one of their big E3 pushes, I think.
No, for sure. Yeah.
You'll see it. You'll see it in the Sony.
There is a lot of affinity for Soul Calibur among the press.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the Dreamcast game.
Dreamcast, and this is a revamp of the Dreamcast one.
Yep.
Kind of a reboot, remake.
Yep.
So maybe it shouldn't even count, but they called it 6, so screw
Yep.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, it counts.
But yeah, I just think this will do quite well. There's a lot of pleasant feelings towards it.
I love Soul Calibur. It's one of my favorite fighting franchises.
And it's also super accessible as a fighting game goes. So
you can button mash and win.
Yeah, you can mash your way to victory. It's like
you can.
It's something that's fun. It's a good party fighting game where a lot of fighting games are not.
Yep.
So I think this is going to do well, and I feel good having it with. I feel good that it has my back.
That's kind of an ace in the hole there for sure. All right, my second alternate and my absolute last pick of the 2018 SIFTD Fantasy League Draft is Code Vein. Trying to get on a little bit of that Souls fervor.
Yeah, well, since we can't pick the remaster of 1,
right,
which would probably be an automatic 95
pretty
or
much,
something.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is what Souls fans are going to get this year. And what happens with critics is you have a smattering of people who love these games on your staff, and they're the same ones who review every take on the Souls aesthetic.
Depending on what that teaser was at the Game Awards, and where that's going.
Right.
Instead of Kingdom Hearts 3, I almost picked whatever that From
Bloodborne
Software
2.
game is.
You're just going to call it that From Software.
That From Software tease game. I was going to call it that.
That's not a bad strategy, in all honesty. But as far as games that we actually know about, this is really the only Souls experience from
Souls
Bandai
alike,
Namco coming in 2018. To the best of our knowledge right now, anyway. We could get a shocker.
I think it's a pretty good pick. I wonder if it doesn't match up, because it's by the God Eater team. It's going to be a God Eater game that kind of has some Soulsy elements in it. And I wonder if you're handing these, it almost comes down to editorial choice, where it's like, if you hand this game to your in-house Souls expert, are they going to judge it as a Souls game that's going to come up short?
Because they could shred it then.
Yeah, they could rip it apart.
They could pull this isn't Dark Souls.
Even,
2 for you.
Even when it's not necessarily trying to do exactly the Dark Souls thing, it's trying to do the God Eater thing.
Right.
With a little informedness from Dark Souls. But it'd be interesting. It's I think given the way the zeitgeist rolls these days in this kind of like subgenre, I think it's a solid choice.
It looks like a 7.
And it is coming out this year.
It is, absolutely.
That's really the most important part for the alternates is doesn't look terrible, will be out in 2018.
I went way conservative with these because I took the 2 risks before. I'm like, I'm not going to get a 0 this year. It would be the first year I didn't get a 0, I believe, if I do not get one this year.
Yeah.
So I just went all in on being conservative and making sure that all my games were coming out. Or at least I had 10 games without a doubt that were coming out so I could field a full team for the season. So here it is, the last pick of the draft, Matt. Your final alternate, what is it?
My last pick is Dreams.
Dreams.
Don't let me down, Medium Molecule. Make it out this year. I've been assured in many times at the what was the Sony, the PlayStation experience and all that. It was like, oh yeah, 2018.
All their trailers that have come out the last 6 months have all said 2018 on it.
And
it's literally in print is coming out in 2018.
It's functional. It's it works. You can put your hands on it. You can do stuff. You can make stuff in it. It's there.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure this looks super cool and interesting, and this
is something critics will resonate with.
Yeah, I don't see a way this doesn't hit it with the press.
Yeah. It's very artsy, it's creative, it allows you to build your own stuff. Media
Molecule's just a charming developer that makes stuff that no one else makes.
The press likes Media Molecule, absolutely, without a doubt. The one thing I would say is that, the game's been delayed so many times, and there's always a reason for that. 1. 2, this is a very difficult game to make.
Yeah.
There are so many opportunities to mess up at some point, just in how user-friendly it is. If it's not extremely user-friendly, it's a deal breaker. And
I feel like that's one of the reasons it's been
I think it absolutely was, because when they started putting media out for it again, one of the first things they published was this video where they show you how you can just cut and paste. And in fact, in the last GIF, one of the little brief cutaways was the guy saying, one of the most fun things you can do in Dreams is cut and paste. Which, probably not the best endorsement for the game.
No,
but,
maybe don't put that one on the box.
But it does assuage my concerns about it a little bit. No, because the user interface to me is a big deal. And it was something that they got mostly right with Little Big Planet. So, yeah, I think that's a safe pick. It's definitely coming out. And I also feel like the fact that it is a very creative game will give it a little bit of help if there are other parts of the game that aren't quite up to scratch. So I think that's a safe pick. You know it's going to come out. It should do at least, again, it should do at least a 7.
Yeah. I like the chat is kind of saying, like, oh, I think I like Shane's picks more, like, overall, which they've said every year.
Have they?
Every year at the end
How
of the live.
How could they have said that after last year?
Every year at the end of the live, like, stream, the chat has been mostly like, oh, I think Shane's good. I'm just like,
nope.
Like, which, again, you probably had a pretty good shot if the stuff you picked came out.
Yeah. But that's part of the game. I mean, that's part of the game. You have to try to pick games that are going to make it out this year, and that's a part of the game I have not been good at.
And you never, I mean, look, Dreams, I am reasonably certain, but there is a non-zero chance that one of my alternates gets delayed out of 2018.
Absolutely.
You know? But I think it's going to be, there's a lot more risks in my list this year than there ever has been in the last 2.
Yeah.
So I am not as 100%. Last year I knew I was going to win. I walked out of here being like, yeah, he's got no chance. Like,
yeah, you were right.
this year, I don't know. This year I think it's more of a coin flip.
Well, I think...
And the alternate thing has freed that up to be that way, I think.
Yeah. Well, I have some questions here now that we've finished the draft that I wanted to bring up for both of us. What was your best pick?
My best pick?
Yeah.
If it exists, Elder Scrolls 6 is the best pick. Other than that, I think the one I'm going to be the happiest I managed to get in there is probably Dragon Ball FighterZ.
Okay.
I think that game's going to do real well.
My best pick, oh man. I had so many.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I think Tomb Raider is my best pick because I'm pretty freaking certain it's coming out this year.
Yeah, I think your 2 long shots being Forza Horizon and Tomb Raider are pretty sure things.
Yeah, but getting Tomb Raider in the 10 hole, a game that could potentially get around a 9, I think that's pretty huge. So
at the very least, it's in the 80s, mid-80s.
Yeah. Well, you would hope. Same developer, 2 excellent games in a row.
Yeah.
You would think it would do very well with the third one. Next question.
Even if it's not as good as the other 2, the press won't realize it.
Yeah.
They'll give it 8s anyway. We know that.
Next question. What was your worst pick?
I have a sneaking suspicion my worst pick may end up being Sea of Thieves.
Really? Because you took it so high?
Took it so high, and I feel like if there's one game that could actually turn out to be like, oh no, this is garbage, just surprisingly, like I feel like that's the one that could turn out to be like, meh. It could be. I'm almost banking on the idea that Microsoft is going to, quote unquote, wine and dine the press on this thing, control their experience to give them a positive impression to make the reviews better.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's not even just wine and dine. It's just provide the ultimate environment
set
to
the
enjoy
table
the
for
game.
them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's the one I'm worried about the most, but I wanted to get it earlier than I probably wanted. I wanted to pick it earlier than I probably would have preferred to because I thought you were going to go for it.
I was going to go for it. And I have this awful tendency in the draft to try to make up for past mistakes. That's what happened with Andromeda last year. Because remember, I had picked Andromeda the year before. It was delayed out into the first quarter. And I was like, well, I got burned by it, so I'm going to reap the rewards of Mass Effect Andromeda. I took it with my first pick, second overall, ended up with like a 73 or something like that. So
that boggled my mind at the time. I was like, because we had already disagreed over, because like I was very skeptical of Mass Effect, and you thought it was just because I was a fan who like wasn't able to accept new things. But I didn't expect it to be what it was, but I certainly didn't. I certainly saw that it was not
worthy of a 1 pick.
Yeah, on there.
First round. Pick.
It wasn't on my list at all, to be honest.
That's crazy.
But accurate.
I don't know. Based upon some of the games I had last year, it wasn't one of my worst picks.
No, but your first pick being a 72.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I would have thought it was like, okay, back an 80. Yeah. I wouldn't have thought it would have gone that low. I mean, nobody could have anticipated the state they released that game.
A lot of backlash on that game. My worst pick, I think I've said it already, Detroit Become Human. I could have got that 10th. I could have got that as alternate.
You could have got that as an alternate, yeah. I never would have picked that.
Yeah, and I ended up taking it in the 7th spot. So I definitely regret that pick.
You took it in something, that's for sure.
So I don't know. I'm hoping I'm pleasantly surprised. At this point, I'm kind of resigned to it, and it is getting like a 6.5 or something like that. I'm hoping some of my late round picks can make up the difference.
And I got to admit, I'm a little nervous about NBA 2K19.
I'm surprised you're not bringing up Vampire. To me, that was easily your worst pick.
I'm pretty confident on Vampire.
Wow, I'm surprised to hear that.
I trust Don't Nod. I trust them as long as it comes out this year.
Yeah.
I trust Don't Nod to do something worthy.
We'll see. It'll all come out in the wash. If you guys have questions for us, by the way, you can start putting them into the chat now. We have 2 more questions we're going to ask ourselves, and then we'll take some questions.
Did you have any you were thinking about picking but you didn't?
I'll get to that after we answer these other questions. What surprised you about this year's draft?
I was surprised you didn't text me about it till last night.
Yeah.
Not much, really. I was a little surprised. I didn't think of Forza Horizon 4. And I was a little surprised you picked Days Gone as soon as you did.
Okay. What surprised me the most is how quickly the herd thinned out. Coming off of 2017, again, in my opinion, one of the best years ever for gaming. By the time we got to like the 4th pick for each of us, so like 8 games were off the board, it became really hard for me. That's where I started taking 5 to 10 minutes to make a pick. It just felt like I was splitting hairs trying to figure out which game to pick over another one at that point, and that's insane.
Well, and similarly, like look at both our lists there. What do you notice? There's only one Nintendo game in there.
Yeah. Well, we don't really.
We don't know enough, and the ones we do know about, we don't trust.
Well, we know about Kirby and Yoshi, and both of those games. They get 7s or 8s typically.
And the big one, I think that is Smash 4, which isn't eligible.
It isn't. Yeah.
We don't. Obviously, that's not announced, but like, come on.
Yeah.
We don't know. We have no information on Pokemon if it's even going to make it.
I'm not trusting Pikmin 4.
No, clearly
we
not.
may not see that for another 5 years. Who knows? I don't know why we haven't seen it already.
But it's just like it's the Nintendo element was a real deciding factor last year, and
is empty.
Not just in the draft, but in the sense of like why the release schedule was so exciting.
Yeah.
And that's not there now.
Not
yet anyway.
Well, there is one Switch game.
Well, there's Labo Variety. Yeah, I picked Labo Variety in a very cynical way, but Nintendo was the 1st round pick last year, and then another 4th round pick only because you didn't think Super Mario was coming out.
Right. That would have been the
other number 1 pick, right?
Yeah.
It's just like it's amazing how that shifts, and now it's just like you're leaning very hard on PS4 exclusives.
Yeah.
I'm leaning very hard on known quantities.
Yeah.
It's a very different year, and
that's what was surprising to me. How much worse 2018 is compared to 2017. And look, we may get some surprises. We may get The Last of Us Part 2, or we may get Anthem.
Yeah.
Anthem is technically scheduled for Q4.
Yeah, Anthem I just don't trust to come out this year at all.
Right, because Anthem, I looked at it, I'm like, that's just another Mass Effect waiting to happen to me.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's the same publisher and the same studio, and I was like, oh no, I'm staying far away from that. If I knew without a doubt that Anthem was coming out this year, it would have been one of my top 2 picks, without a doubt. But we really have no clue, and so it was left off. So, yeah, the thing that struck me the most is that, wow, after last year, this year's going to be a little bit of a letdown.
Consider that I put Kingdom Hearts 3 on there ahead of Anthem. Because I think if I give them about an equal chance of coming out this year, and on top of that, I think if Kingdom Hearts does make it out this year, it's going to review better than Anthem.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the last questions that we have for us, and I'll see if you guys have some. Here's one from Vincent, one of our curators on the site. Why didn't you do a snake pick? So do you know what snake means? So snake draft, how it works.
My only response to that is there's no Metal Gear Solid game coming out this year.
Yeah. Well, the reason we didn't do it is because you don't do that with only 2 people. A 2-person draft, a snake draft, makes no sense whatsoever. But what a snake draft is it goes this way. And so what happens is you pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then the 10 guy gets 2 picks.
2 picks, and
then it comes back down the other order. When you have 2 people,
that doesn't matter.
That's like basically a snake draft would be us picking 2 games at a time. So it just, with 2 people, it just doesn't make any sense. If we had even 4, I would probably do a snake. Anything over 4, without a doubt, we would do a snake. But yeah, with the way that, and I'm sure you're probably referencing that because a lot of people have been doing drafts on SIFTD over the last couple weeks. Like we have like a kind of a semi-official SIFTD fantasy league on the site. And they've already done their draft, and they probably have 10 or 15 people, so you have to do a snake there. It's the only way to make it fair. But with just the 2 of us, it doesn't make any sense.
What was there any games that you didn't pick but you know are coming out this year but just avoided?
So that's one thing I kind of said during the draft is that I wanted to bring up after we were done some games that were kind of on the fringe to show you they may think that we're a little crazy and saying, oh, why would they pick those games? Well, let me kind of go through the games that were on my hot list that were not picked. Metro Exodus. I'm not convinced that game's coming out this year.
Same.
I'm really not convinced. Darksiders 3.
Also not convinced it comes out this year.
Also not convinced of that. Also not convinced it's going to be as good as the other Darksiders because it's different people working on it. Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. It's an indie game. I don't trust indie games to come out ever. Unless somebody sends me preview code, I don't believe it's coming out in the immediate future with an indie game. There's been so many indie games that have been delayed into infinity.
Yeah, we're very light on indie games, and I think that's the main reason why.
Yeah, it's a total wild card. And so I stayed away from that. State of Decay 2. First game ended up with a 7.1 Metacritic.
Yeah,
I could very well see this game getting the same thing.
And I remembered the reaction to the trailer at E3 where it just
all
didn't look very good.
All the memes that came out of it. Yeah, I just wanted to stay away.
I'm looking forward to that one a lot.
I am too, actually.
Yeah.
Kingdom Come Deliverance was another one that was on my fringe.
This was like next down.
Yep.
If we had 3 alternates, this would be my third alternate.
I almost picked it too, and in fact, one of the reasons one of my picks took so long towards the end was I was researching Kingdom Come Deliverance. And there's been a couple hands-on previews that have gone up over the last month or so, and they were mostly positive, but a lot of people.
That game, as interested as I am in it, that game sets off my Eurojank alarm like you wouldn't believe.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see it in the trailers. I mean,
it looks like I'm like, oh, I mean, if I can put up with Gothic 2, I can play this, but it's like that doesn't mean the reviewers are going to like it.
Yeah, but let's be honest. I mean, the first couple Witcher games had Eurojank, and they figured it out. So the studio eventually could get there, but too early to trust. Hunt Showdown was on the fringe for me. That game to me is one of the most exciting multiplayer games coming up of 2018, but it is just a multiplayer game. It doesn't really have a single-player component. Generally, those games don't fare too well.
Yeah. And also, that's Crytek, right?
Yeah.
Is Crytek going to be around long enough to put that game out? We don't know.
I hope, but there's a beta coming up for that too, and I am really excited to get on it. Mega Man 11 was another game
also
on the
my
fringe.
list. Yeah, I just, we've talked about it before. I'm just like, I feel like I was worried about getting dinged for the art style.
After I was on Colin Moriarty's podcast, that's why I did not pick it, because he's a hardcore Mega Man fan, and he's like, I don't know about that. And I was like, all right, that's all I need to hear to not draft it. Skull and Bones from Ubisoft. That was out there.
I mean, it looks...
We've seen so little.
Haven't seen much probably this year, but I think the reviews on that are going to be like, it's fun, but it's not what we wanted when we said we wanted a game based on Black Flag.
Yeah.
I wonder at it.
Yep.
I guess would be the way to put it.
I just don't know enough.
Right.
And the most important of which is it really going to come out this year? Who knows? They say it is, but it is Ubisoft. Ubisoft has been known to delay games pretty significantly. I'm just going to stay away from it. Crackdown 3. I just don't think the game looks good.
I don't think it's going to review very well.
I don't think it will either. I mean, I've seen it and played it a couple times, and it really did nothing for me. It just seems like it's living off the IP, the name, more than anything. I feel like games have moved past that type of design a long time ago.
It's just amazing to me that game is still coming, and Scalebound got canceled.
It boggles the mind. It really does. Witchfire, which is one of my little pet project games for this year. Again, this was literally my last couple things.
You're down in weird places.
I'm at the end. And then Dragon Quest XI, which is reviewed ginormously based upon its Japanese release. I think when it comes to US, it's going to do really well, but again, it doesn't have a solid release date.
Yeah, and you just can't tell with Square Enix.
And it's Dragon Quest.
Yeah, they don't prioritize Dragon Quest, so It's hard to know when or where.
And then one other game that I wrote down as we were drafting, Ghost of Tsushima, which is allegedly slated for 2018.
Yeah, maybe.
Sucker Punch's new game.
It's risky.
Right.
And we don't know enough about it to be like, well, the risk is worth it because I think this game's going to get a 9.
I love Sucker Punch.
The best you could do is be working on the reputation of Sucker Punch.
Right. We've seen one trailer for it. That's it.
Yeah, but there's not enough information to make that call on.
I don't see it coming out this year. And that's really it. That's kind of the hot list for the year, in all honesty. I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some indie stuff that's going to be great. And, Ori and the Will of the Wisps was another one. I actually had that way up high.
Oh, wow.
But as we were drafting, I started doing research, and they're like, they haven't even said 2018 for that game. I think it will come out this year.
Yeah, it's about the right timing, I think.
And the first Ori is sitting at an 8.9. And I'm only assuming this is going to be better. So I figured that would be a good pick if I knew for sure it was coming out, and there's no confirmation of it at all. You just don't. So that was it. Like, that was literally, I guess, the top 30 or 40 games, at least according to me, that are coming out this year, and according to a lot of other journalists, because I did use some most anticipated games list to help me kind of put it together. So that's 2018, folks. That's what we got coming up this year. It's been a bit of an eye-opener for me to kind of go through this exercise and see what's coming out. So let's see if you guys have any more questions before we call it a day. Justin Horman, what are the biggest bombs of the year that you predict? To be a bomb, it would have to be something here that underperforms. Probably Detroit.
Yeah, I feel like, it wouldn't surprise me if Detroit didn't crack $1 million.
Yeah. Controversy might.
I feel like there's a very real chance A Way Out just comes and goes like a soft breeze.
Well, it's kind of an indie game, really. It's not getting like the usual backing EA would give a game either.
No, but
so
it's still an EA game. I mean, EA's got the muscle to make it a thing if they want to, and they don't seem. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I feel like Monster Hunter World may not sell the way they're hoping.
Yeah, I don't know what their expectations are.
It's got the advantage that there's not really a lot of competition, though. I mean, what other major?
It's the only like real big AAA game coming out. This month. And everyone's got that Christmas money burning a hole in their pocket if they haven't spent it already, or they got gift cards or whatever. It could do pretty well, and it's done pretty well in the U.S. It usually sells around $1.5 million, something like that. I would guess that Capcom is hoping for at least 2.5, 3 in the U.S., especially with the install base of all the consoles now and all that kind of stuff. So I would say, man, I mean, I don't think Valkyria Chronicles 4 is going to sell at all, really. I mean, it'll probably sell 500,000 copies or whatever. Is that a bomb, though?
No, it's probably what they expect.
Right.
Like, a bomb has to like fall vastly short of expectations.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even Mass Effect Andromeda was not a bomb.
Honestly, dreams.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the average consumer looks at that and they're like, what the hell is that?
If you can gauge what Sony thinks that's going to sell in the first place, you know?
Well, it is a Sony first-party game, so I would set my expectations to at least like $1 million.
Yeah.
And I think it may struggle to get to that.
It's possible. It depends kind of how they can sell it and how they can show. The struggle with Dreams is trying to impart in a quick and easy and functional way what it is, you know, and I still don't feel like they've gotten there yet.
Cutting and pasting is the funnest part of Dreams.
Yeah, that's not not helping. Not helping yet, bro.
Really not. Let's see if you guys have any more. Super Cordon Bleu. Do you think gamers will still go out and buy EA games in 2018 after the backlash the company received in 2017? Great question.
Yes, because we don't learn.
I don't honestly think people hold grudges as consumers. I mean, unless like you buy a car and it's a piece of junk.
They do until it comes to something they really want.
Yeah. But like cars, like a big purchase, something like that, sure. If you buy a $3,000 TV and it gets burned in like 3 months, sure. Like I could see you not buying that brand of TV again. But with video games, it's a small investment, it's a small risk, and you're absolutely right. People see something that they really like, I think they're going to buy it. I don't even think there's going to be that much backlash against Battlefront 2. I think ultimately it's gonna sell less than the first one, but I think it's still going to end up selling really, really well and be more than worth the investment that EA put into it and all that.
Sort of. I mean, you wonder, logic doesn't always hold in the boardroom when it comes to like, people sitting around looking at EA saying like, how come the first one sold this much and the second one only sold this much?
Yeah.
And you got to have an answer for that. So whether it's a success or not kind of depends on your perspective. I think it'll sell fine in the end, but I think I called, long ago, like it's going to be way less than the first game, and you thought that was you were surprised by me saying that.
Yeah.
But, in the end, it just, the Force Awakens release window was a period of hype for Star Wars that nothing like that for the brand since 1999 when Episode 1 came out.
Yeah.
And Episode 1 sold people a lot of terrible products. And Battlefront 1 was not a terrible product, and it sold even better than you would expect. And Battlefront 2 just doesn't have that hype wave to ride in the same way. What else is EA putting out?
For this coming year?
This like first half of the year. Is there anything?
Nothing really.
Way out and...
That's pretty much it. I mean, EA has turned into a company that just
puts a few
puts
things
out
out.
a handful of games a year.
The sports games.
All the sports stuff, and then a smattering of other ones.
I mean, I guess like the real question that what you're really asking is Battlefront 2's problem going to impact whether people are willing to take the leap on Anthem?
An unknown IP and...
Right, and I would say that if that was a thing that was anything they had to worry about, Destiny 2 would not have sold as well as it did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, because it's not like this is the first rodeo for EA with this stuff. Like...
And it's like, look, am I skeptical about what they're going to do with the microtransactions for Anthem? Yes. Am I going to buy Anthem? Yes.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I can fly around like frickin' Iron Man on an alien world or whatever that is.
It's also made by BioWare, the BioWare,
the real BioWare.
Not the B team that made Andromeda.
Yeah. And this is, I feel like, and this might just be me, my bias talking, but I feel like this is it for BioWare. If this game doesn't perform, if this game isn't BioWare quality, like I feel like they're out behind the woodshed with in the same pit as Origin and Westwood and Visceral Games.
Don't say that. I don't even want to hear it.
Like
don't speak it.
EA doesn't give you a lot of second chances, and like as the people who worked on Mass Effect Andromeda learned. And I hope Anthem's really, really good. I hope it's a KOTOR 1 level success.
All right, here's the last question from Toast916X. Why no talk on a new Battlefield this year? So we were just saying, what else is EA going to put out? Mm-hmm. And he's saying, new Battlefield.
Well, the time's right.
Is it right?
About every 2 years. If they did Battlefield, Battlefront 2, Battlefield... Maybe not an unreasonable expectation.
Rumors swirling about a new Bad Company game have been.
Yeah, but I've also seen some kind of responses, rumors that are like, no, like just flat, no, it's not Bad Company.
Okay.
Like it's not mainline, another Battlefront 1 kind of thing, but it ain't Bad Company, and maybe that's it. I would love to see another Bad. I really enjoyed the Bad Company.
I think everybody did. Yeah.
Not just single player, but also the multiplayer, the Gold Rush stuff I thought really worked. Yeah. And one of my favorite lines of that generation is still where in 2 where they're trying to chase the satellite, and the satellite comes burning over the heads of all of them, and the one guy, I don't remember their name, but the one guy who's just obsessed with explosives goes, "That is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life."
Yeah, I remember that line.
And so I had a lot of fun playing those games, and that is not something I say about DICE's campaigns very often.
No, they've been really bad, mostly.
So I would not mind seeing that make a comeback, but I don't think that's in the cards, unfortunately.
But look, there's no way I would have picked Battlefield.
No, I also don't trust Battlefield to review very well anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I really don't. Yeah,
like it's
because the campaign.
Yeah.
People tend to ding it pretty hard for its campaign.
It was, review score-wise, they almost did better when there was no campaign.
You're right.
Because it was
absolutely
there was nothing to disappoint
critics had nothing to point at and say this sucks. But there's no way I was going to draft Battlefield.
No, even if we knew about it, I don't think I would have put it on my list.
If we knew about it and knew it was coming out this year, I probably would have ended up drafting it last few rounds, maybe.
Yeah, maybe it might have made my alternates, but like, I don't consider that series to be a huge powerhouse at this point.
Quality has varied wildly
Yeah.
for that franchise. Like, Battlefield 1's great, and people are still loving it, and it's still doing well financially for EA, but it's just been like up and down, and this could be the down, and I just probably wouldn't take that risk.
Yeah,
so.
I feel like I don't like to say it, but I feel like Battlefield 2 was the peak. I don't know.
It kind of was.
I don't know if they're ever going to get back there.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, to me, it was they hit the sweet spot there.
Yeah.
It had enough depth that you could keep playing it and get better at it, but it wasn't so overwhelming that you just got caught up in like all the malarkey. And I feel like Battlefield's kind of turned into that now.
Yeah, and all the expansions for 2 I thought were meaningful,
Yeah.
and they made sense, and they made it better.
Significant changes, yeah, it made the game better, absolutely. It just wasn't extra content, which
Yeah.
is what a lot of expansions really are anymore. It's like, hey, here's another map, and does it make the game better? A lot of times not. So that's it, folks. That is the SIFTD 2018 Video Game Fantasy Draft. And we encourage you guys to go and start your own leagues. Even if you're not on SIFTD, go get your friends together, go on a forum somewhere, get it together. It's a lot of fun doing the draft. And just like fantasy football, the draft is always the funnest part of the season. But it's something that you go back to throughout the entire year. You check in on it. When a new game comes out, you're like, oh, that game's on my team. You care. You're like, what's the aggregate? How's it doing? And so I highly encourage you to do it. It's a ton of fun. It's very easy to set up.
I definitely care a lot more about Bethesda's press conference now.
Yep, absolutely. It incentivizes you to kind of keep in touch with the gaming industry throughout the entire year as well. So highly recommend it. I know if you go onto SIFTD, onto our forums, you'll be able to find another group of 10 people who will want to play, aside from the group that's already started as the semi-official SIFTD user league. It's a blast. It keeps you engaged with games throughout the whole year, so I highly recommend it. And I want to thank you guys for tuning in today. I realize, completely different. This is not Game Face. Some people get their alerts. They're like, oh, I'm going to watch Game Face. It's not what you got today, but I hope you guys had fun and enjoyed it anyway. To our patrons, to the folks on YouTube who are seeing this for the first time, I hope you enjoyed it. We have all these little things we've been doing at SIFTD that people really had no clue about. And it's kind of good to get them out there and let people see that we do tend to do things in a unique way whenever we can. And this is one of the things that we've really kind of planted our flag in the ground with. I've seen a lot of people on Twitter complimenting us on this and saying it's genius and they wish they had thought of it. But I don't want people to think that they can't do it because we did it first. It's like I saw Easy Ally saying, oh, that's a brilliant idea. Do it, guys. Like, it's totally fine. I'm not going to hate on you guys if you guys do your own fantasy draft. I would like to watch your fantasy draft. I'd like to watch a draft with a lot more people, in honesty.
Yeah, it'd be cool if we got to like a point where we could actually kind of get a bunch of different outlets together and do it.
It would be cool if we could get.
Then we would be able to do a snake.
Absolutely, we would be able to. So, look, if you guys want to do it out there, if you're watching this, you're like, wow, I don't want to steal their idea. Go ahead, totally fine. We're totally cool with it. So,
although if you split up, if you need, let's say you need 6 lists of 10.
Yeah.
Oof.
It would be tough.
Imagine
schedule. The games you get at,
Yeah.
like when you're down that far and you have to take 100 games off the board. That's one of the reasons that we've kind of stuck to 2 people, because if you have even just 6 people with 10 games, or we have 12 in this case, that's 72 games. You get down to number 72, man, you have to do a lot of research to have a good team at that point. So I would just say, if you do try the idea, just give us some props. Say we got this from SIFTD, and that's good enough for me. So that's it. Good luck, Matt.
Good luck.
I hope I can frickin' win again.
Yeah, I don't know.
You guys are on a 2-year winning streak here. I need to bring it back.
I think this year's your best shot so far.
Other than Marcus, which, does that even count?
I don't know. Did you win that? Or
I did. Oh, yeah. I destroyed him, but he didn't get into it. He didn't.
No, he
did
didn't
not apply himself to it.
No.
He didn't apply himself to much when he was on Game Face.
No, it was just sort of faded away.
Yeah. But we still love Marcus, and he's actually doing really good right now, by the way. So you guys know. So anyway, that's it for the SIFTD Video Game Fantasy Draft 2018. Hope you guys start your own leagues and have fun. We'll see you next time.